Drinking black tea calmly at Hogwarts. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 426: The Encounter on the Top of the Mountain. While Zhang Su was obsessed with studying and remedial lessons, other people were also struggling for their own goals. It's just that none of this has anything to do with Zhang Su, who has entered the mode of sleeping only 5 hours a day 7 days a week. After the second model came out, he realized that he had so many shortcomings. With the results of the second model, not to mention next year's 985, even the current 211 will overturn under carelessness. Fortunately, the college entrance examination in 1997 was still in July, not June in 7, which gave him a chance to struggle. During this high-intensity study period, he only went home to rest for 2 days when Furin came back during the May, Labor Day holiday. His efforts finally paid off. In the 3-mode exam that started not long after the Labor Day holiday, Zhang Su, who was more tired than before the holiday break, got a pretty good result. However, at the end of June, Zhang Su, who had been deaf to the outside world, was escorted to Wuxi International Airport by the principal Li Jixi and their class teacher Shi. While waiting in the terminal hall, Principal Li said to Zhang Su earnestly, "Zhang Su, we have seen your hard work and achievements during this period, but you have to go a trip to Hong Kong. You are an advanced students representative representing our middle school, and even middle school students across the country, to attend the return ceremony. Although I don't know what outstanding contributions you have made to the country over the years, and I don't want to ask, you cannot shirk this honor." Teacher Shi, who was sitting on the other side of Zhang Su, also said, "You should take a good rest. In terms of knowledge acquisition, your progress is rapid. But you haven't been able to take a good rest, so I found that your mental state is very poor recently, and you're on the verge of collapse. So during this time of preparing for the college entrance examination, you don't need to grind your guns. What you need is to rest well and adjust your physical and mental state." After the two persuaded them, it happened that Zhang Su's plane to Hong Kong started to board the plane, so the principal and class teacher didn't wait for Zhang Su to say anything, and they left after pushing him into the boarding gate. On the plane, Zhang Su helped an old gentleman sitting next to him put his carry-on luggage on the luggage rack. After sitting in the seat, the old gentleman looked at Zhang Su for a while, and then asked, "Little comrade, you look very kind. Have you been on the news network before?" "If you're talking about the news broadcast at the end of March, I showed my face on it for a while," Zhang Su said modestly. Knowing that he had achieved the achievement of being on the stage 10 minutes before the news broadcast, Zhang Su found a special time to go online and found the video of the report on the official website of CCTV. He saw his ID photo with a serious face appearing on the TV screen superior. "It's really you. No wonder you look familiar," the old gentleman said. "With you here, I'm not afraid of the plane being hijacked." Zhang Su smiled and said nothing. He could feel that there were at least 3 security personnel on the plane who were disguised as passengers. After Zhang Su chatted with the old gentleman who called himself Lao Liu asked, "You went to Hong Kong to participate in the handover ceremony, right?" "Yes," Zhang Su replied. "I'm one of the student representatives, and I was busy preparing for the college entrance examination, so I was called away. Originally, I was busy with my revision and couldn't go." "What you said is wrong," Old Liu said seriously. "You can take the college entrance examination again next year, but you can't let Hong Kong return to China again." Now Zhang Su couldn't refute. The next thing is Lao Liu's memory moment. "Back then, our number 15 Corps went all the way south, and later liberated Shenzhen. At that time, we reached the north bank of the Shenzhen River, and Hong Kong was further ahead. That day I borrowed a telescope from the company commander and stood on the bank to see what Hong Kong looks like, but I didn't expect that I was photographed by a Hong Kong reporter across the river. At that time, I was cooking in the cooking class, and I was a little fat. At that time, people in Hong Kong thought that our soldiers in the People's Liberation Army were as thin as bamboo poles, and only high-ranking officials were fat. So the next day Hong Kong newspapers published my photo, saying that a high-ranking official of the People's Liberation Army personally scouted Hong Kong, indicating that the People's Liberation Army was about to attack. At that time, this incident scared the people in Hong Kong quite a bit. Zhang Su listened to it with black lines. It seems that Hong Kong journalists have a tradition of making bad news. The almost 2-hour flight ended quickly in the chat between the two. After the plane landed at Kai Tak International Airport, Zhang Su found the staff at the exit to arrange the itinerary, and then came to the hotel where he was staying. At the climax of the moon, I ate a full stomach of curry fish balls, car noodles, rice rolls, pork chop buns, stocking milk tea, wonton noodles, bowls of wings, egg waffles, pineapple oil, barbecued pork buns. Zhang Su, who had egg tarts, checkered cakes, ham toast, fried spicy crab under the bridge, etc., walked to the viewing platform on the top of Victoria Peak, a bird's eye view of the night view of Hong Kong. He is a bit full today, so he needs to exercise. Tonight, tourists who speak relatively standard Mandarin on the viewing platform account for a large part. In addition, there is a tour group that speaks Sichuan dialect and a tour group that speaks Shaanxi dialect. At this time, Zhang Su was chatting with an old foreign man he met while climbing. When they met on the mountain road, they could tell at a glance that each other was a wizard, but there are not many wizards who can climb mountains to exercise, so the two chatted while climbing, and they felt like friends at first sight. Now that medicine is so advanced, if you have any disease, you can take medicine. My second daughter and son insist on exercising every day. The old man grumbled. The medicine is 3-point poisonous, and taking the medicine still affects the body. Zhang Su said, and sometimes the body collapses before the medicine takes effect. That's true, the old man said with a nod. I used to know a man named Abraxas Malfoy who got dragon plague syphilis. He just took the medicine and died before the medicine took effect. Zhang Su, this is not the first time I've heard of it. It seems that everyone knows about the scandal of the Malfoy family. Anyway, there's no harm in exercising your body, and it won't worry your children. Zhang Su said. Oh, the old man said after sighing, they don't have to worry about me, but I worry about my eldest daughter. What happened to Ling Qianjun? Zhang Su asked. What else can I do? Said the old man, she is in her 30s. Although she looks the same as when she was 16, she has never been married. I, as a father, am in a hurry. At this moment, Zhang Su's heart beat faster suddenly, and he realized that something was wrong. And the old man went on to say, if you don't get married, it's up to her. But a few years ago, she was tricked by Dumbledore to become a professor at Hogwarts. You should have heard of Dumbledore and Hogwarts, right? Hogwarts is a magic school in England, and Dumbledore is the headmaster. It's okay to go to Hogwarts. We have escaped from England for so many years. It's good for someone to go back and explore the way. However, after I wrote to Mrs. Longbottom 2 years ago, she replied that my daughter was actually having a teacher-student relationship with a mainland student named Zhang in Hogwarts. Teacher-student love is teacher-student love. Don't you have a saying that you would rather demolish 10 temples than destroy a family? I don't object if my daughter likes it. Yang Guo and Xia Long, you are different and have a good life. Later, I checked the details of that student, and it seemed that he was a leader of the younger generation, and he was worthy of my daughter. But seriously, I later found out that the student actually had another girlfriend. You know, when I heard the news, I was so angry that I almost left for England to feed that student to the squids in Lake Hogwarts. When my daughter came back at Christmas that year, I told her not to let that kid fool her. As a result, my eldest daughter actually said that she knew all these things, and told us not to care about her affairs. My second daughter and son also persuaded her, but she just didn't listen. We really don't know how that little boy gave her the love potion. If that little boy dares to come to my house, I will definitely break his legs and sink to the bottom of Victoria Bay. Perhaps it was because he hadn't found such a good friend for a long time. The old man vented his inner distress fiercely. In the end, the old man smiled and said to Zhang Su, who was silent all the time, I think you are very pleasing to the eye, and you are also good looking, and I also feel that you and I are destined. How about I introduce my eldest daughter to you? Okay. Don't look at her age, but she really looks the same as when she was 16 years old, and she is quite suitable to stand with you. Older girls can take care of others. Why don't you come to my house for dinner tonight? Snack, I will introduce you when she comes back from vacation next month. Perhaps it was because of the darkness that the old man didn't realize that Zhang Su beside him was already covered in cold sweat. At this time, what Zhang Su was thinking about was how to turn in gracefully and politely without arousing the other party's suspicion, and how to find time to discuss the tricks of underwater escape with Draco Malfoy. By the way, I haven't asked your name after chatting for so long. The old man said, my name is Tepesh Scarlet. After confirming the other party's identity, Zhang Su's cold sweat became even more intense. Just when he was considering the pseudonym Lia Bao or Lin Yaod, a slap suddenly hit him on the shoulder. At the same time, Jin Hengduo behind him said happily, hey, Zhang Su, you have already arrived. I thought you would arrive only on the first day. At this moment, the smile on Tepesh Scarlet's face froze instantly. Chapter 427. Entering June, the atmosphere at Hogwarts became a little strange. The students in the lower grades feel this most deeply at the beginning. They found that many students in the senior grades were very nervous, especially the seniors, who often gathered together to discuss something slowly. This happened to the professors. At dinner on the first Friday in June, Dumbledore announced that all exams this year would be taken a week earlier than usual. Amidst the wailing, the lower grade students thought that the seniors and professors had gotten the news that the exam would be held ahead of time, which was why they became so nervous. This also makes them understand the behavior of senior students who often gather together for review. However, what confuses them is why the prefects organize the students to learn the emergency plan for Hogwarts emergencies by grade when they should be reviewing intensively. For a while, rumors spread among the students, but they were quickly suppressed by the ensuing final exam. After the exam, the lower grade students thought they could breathe a sigh of relief, but found that the atmosphere among the senior students became more and more tense. They asked again and again, but the answer they got was nothing. This made the students who were supposed to herd sheep all day after the exam all look preoccupied. Especially one afternoon at the end of June, something happened that made the students nervous for a while. A certain professor was basking in the sun by the lake after correcting the test papers, when Dobby appeared beside her and handed her a roll of parchment with 3 feathers drawn on it. Scarlet hurriedly took the note and opened it, and saw the content of the text message copied by Dobby. I am now next to Victoria Bay. If I have no news after 12 hours, please go to the bottom of the sea to fish me up. The location is Ask Your Family. Under the puzzled eyes of several students who came to inquire about their grades, Professor Scarlet stared at the note for half a minute, then hurriedly ran towards Hogsmeade. Dividing line early the next morning, Jin Hengduo came to the hotel restaurant for morning tea. After he put shrimp dumplings, barbecued pork buns, sui mai, glutinous rice chicken, steamed pork ribs and a pot of jasmine tea on the table, small steamers took up most of the table. While he was enjoying the delicious snacks, someone sat across the table from him. Xiao Zhang came yesterday. Did you see him? I didn't see any response when I knocked on the door. Elder Zhao asked. He may be under Victoria Bay now. Jin Hengduo said while eating shrimp dumplings. Grandpa, you should eat some too. It's not fun to dive in Victoria Bay, isn't it? Mr. Zhao asked with question marks. I won't eat it. I will go out to eat with a few old brothers later. They recommended a few time-honored restaurants. No, he met the parents of a girl who didn't know who it was last night, and was invited away by them. Jin Hengduo said, Old man, tell me if there is any time-honored restaurant that is delicious. Unfamiliar. Mr. Zhao took out a few copper coins from his pocket, threw them on the table, glanced at them and said, Oh, he must be destined to do so, and he can't escape. Mr. Zhao put away the copper coins, and after chatting with Jin Hengduo for a few words, he suddenly looked behind him. Grandpa, did you order any of these snacks? Zhang Su, who suddenly appeared, asked. No. Elder Zhao shook his head and said, These are Xiaoqian's breakfasts. That's good. After Zhang Su finished speaking, before Jin Hengduo could react, he took out a pile of cockroaches and threw 2 or 3 on each of Jin Hengduo's snacks. It's not as disgusting as you, Jin Hengduo protested while clamping the pile of cockroaches into the bone dish with the end of his chopsticks. After so many years, he still can't accept this kind of candy. Who told you to talk nonsense when you saw that the atmosphere was not right last night? Zhang Su gave him an annoyed look. It's as if you were spending money to keep someone else's daughter. Then Zhang Su called a dim sum cart and ordered salt and pepper duck shin, beef louvers, beef balls, steamed chicken feet with black bean sauce, quicksand buns, water chestnut cakes, coconut milk milfeu cakes, shredded coconut glutinous rice cakes, open dates and a pati guanayan. The table was covered with cages and dishes for a while. I was right at the time. Who asked you to pay her such a high salary and lend her such a large amount of money without collateral? Jin Hengduo said, You can give me a share of this horseshoe cake. It's fine if you praise her daughter for being beautiful. If you have to say 3 sentences, There are 2 sentences about raising money, and the words are instructive. Zhang Su said with a black line, "No, I want to eat myself." "How did you come back alive?" Zhao Lao, who had been watching the 2 young people playing around, asked. "They are also reasonable," Zhang Su said while eating the layered coconut milk milfeu cake made with coconut milk and horseshoe powder. "Everyone can speak clearly together and it will be fine. Just burn the winners of your life," Jin Hengduo said to the 2 people in front of him enviously. "If you want to burn you, first burn this old man with wives and concubines," Zhang Su said while eating beef balls. "My Qing dynasty has its own national conditions here." The old man looked at the 2 of them with disdain and said. After the 3 joked for a while, Mr. Zhao's old buddies asked him to have breakfast. Jin Hengduo asked while eating a steamed pork ribs, "You just come back like this, is Hogwarts okay?" "It's a big problem," Zhang Su said, holding the quicksand bag between his arms, "but some people thought that my problem would be even bigger if I stayed there, so they drove me back. The Asian financial turmoil will start in a few days. Your plan is fine." Seeing that Zhang Su didn't want to talk about this topic, Jin Hengduo changed to another one. "It's okay to drink the soup," Zhang Su said, "but let's accept it as soon as it's good, and I probably won't go to the rooftop. Next year Soros and the others find out that some of their subordinates have reversed. I don't know how they will feel." Jin Hengduo said. "Everyone is looking for money, so what's the problem with standing on the side that can make a lot of money?" Zhang Su said while drinking tea. "You just think I'm cheating on this matter. The little wife you invested in, there will be no compensation. I'm relieved when you start hanging up." Jin Hengduo said, "When the money is in place, I can get a foot on the Lord of the Rings trilogy." Next, Zhang Su didn't care about the protagonist of the urban novel, and went back to his room to catch up on sleep after eating and drinking. Last night, he talked all night before the matter came to an end. Just as Zhang Su swiped his card to open the door of the room opposite him opened and then suddenly closed, and the loud sound of closing the door from behind startled him. Zhang Su scratched his head. He doesn't look scary. Chapter 428 Closing and Opening. In the early morning of July 1997, the handover ceremony was over, and the people on the streets celebrating the handover and welcoming the troops in Hong Kong also dispersed. A breeze blows, and there is still a little smell of gunpowder smoke from burning fireworks in the air. In the open-air bar on the roof of the hotel, a waiter behind the bar with a large tip looked at the young guests sitting alone drinking. The hotel's open-air bar is not open all night like the bar in Lan Kwai Fung, but if the guests are willing to pay more, there are still many people who are willing to stay and work overtime. As a senior bartender, Li Qiao has seen too many guests who drink all night. They may be celebrating something happy all night, or they need to use alcohol to soothe their sorrows because of life's ups and downs, or they need a quiet place to make some achievements in life major decisions. For example, the restaurant downstairs was booked out tonight by a group of gray-haired old people. I heard that some of them experienced the era when the special treaty on the expansion of Hong Kong's boundary was signed. Before Li Qiao came to Hong Kong from Guangzhou to work hard, she had heard many stories about people who were able to live for more than 100 years. Just as she was yawning, another waiter came out from the back kitchen, took a plate of peanuts and nuts and a plate of dried fish and put them on the table where the only guests were. After Li Ziajin put away the snacks, he went back behind the bar, went to Li Qiao's side, and asked his wife if she was sleepy, or if she should take a rest in the back kitchen first. Li Qiao shook her head and declined his kindness. Those who take the money must have professional ethics and not be lazy. Li Ziajin and Li Qiao, the husband and wife who arranged for the chef to be a guest waiter at the bar, worked overtime together, not because they were afraid that the guests would be unfavorable to Li Qiao when there was no one there. The main reason is that Li Ziajin has a lot of strength. If a guest gets drunk and can't think about it, he can pull the guest back. But what reassures the two of them a little is that the young guest doesn't seem to be drinking away his sorrows now. Judging from the fact that he looked at the mobile phone on the table from time to time, it seemed that he was waiting for some important news. As a financial and commercial city, it is not uncommon for people to wait for news that may be worth hundreds of millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars. There was once a customer in a bar who lost a fortune because his mobile phone was out of battery. Nearly 10 million business. After that incident, there were always several fully charged charging treasures in the bar just in case. Li Qiao looked at the time and guessed that the customer's mobile phone might not have enough power, so she took out a power bank and several charging cables of various types, and was going to ask the customer if they needed it. Looking at the name of her hometown printed on the production address on the power bank, Li Qiao thought that if she hadn't come to Hong Kong to work hard, maybe she would have been a worker in this factory. Li Ziajin stopped Li Qiao, who was yawning again and again, took the tray containing the power bank and charging cable and walked towards the guests. If you yawn while talking to a guest, it's an accident. Zhang Su suppressed the irritability in his heart with half a glass of Amontillado sherry, and then looked at the mobile phone on the table again, but it was still lying there quietly. An hour ago, according to Zhang Su's request before leaving, Dobby went to his villa immediately after the Death Eaters invaded Hogwarts, and sent Zhang Su a text message with Zhang Su's mobile phone there. Now an hour has passed, and Dobby has not had a second short message for a long time. The letter sent made Zhang Su very upset. However, all he can do now is wait anxiously. For tonight, Dumbledore wrote the script, Voldemort wrote the script, and Zhang Su also wrote his own script. The three major plays are staged at Hogwarts at the same time, and there will inevitably be accidents beyond the script. He was a little caught off guard by Dumbledore kicking him off the stage early, and all he could do was to prepare in advance, and then pin his hopes on the Hogwarts students. The main characters in Dumbledore's script are Snape and the other members of the Order of the Phoenix, with Harry Potter in tow. The main characters in Voldemort's script are his Death Eaters. And the actors in Zhang Su's script are the students in Hogwarts that he has painstakingly cultivated in the past 6 years. Unlike elite organizations like the Order of the Phoenix and Death Eaters established by Dumbledore and Voldemort, due to his own knowledge structure and identity, it was impossible for Zhang Su to establish an elite organization like them. That's why Zhang Su chose to believe in the masses, rely on the masses, and mobilize the masses from the very beginning, so that the forces of the masses that were ignored by Dumbledore and Voldemort could be organized, thus forming a force that they could not ignore. For a long time, although Dumbledore called on everyone to unite against Voldemort, he still took the elite route. The allies that Dumbledore has contacted over the years are basically big families. However, most of these families are self-interested elements who always support the Minister of Magic, and whoever becomes the minister supports whom. If they receive Dumbledore's table today, they may receive visiting Death Eaters the next day. Zhang Su, who has been studying Dumbledore's actions, has long seen that Dumbledore still underestimated the energy of the students' organization and mobilization. All he did was to use this power as the cornerstone under Harry Potter's feet. Zhang Su could only shrug his shoulders helplessly. After all, Dumbledore preached that love is the strongest magic. Therefore, Zhang Su simply took advantage of the fact that Dumbledore used students as wedding dresses for Harry Potter. After the establishment of the organization Hogwarts Defenders, he continued to cultivate and subtly influence the thoughts of middle school students. Let them realize that the people, and only the people, are the driving force for creating world history. And tonight was the moment when Zhang Su expected the students to make their debut on stage. Perhaps, with the death of Dumbledore, tonight's event is a dividing line between the end of the old era and the opening of the new era. It's just that he was not able to take command, which made Zhang Su fear that something might go wrong. If there were a large number of casualties in tonight's incident, it would be a huge disaster. It will even knock down the morale that is rarely boosted to the bottom in an instant. And there are those people he is familiar with. If there is any damage, maybe he will go crazy. I hope that the fellowship prepared earlier in the morning will bring good luck to everyone. Sir, do you need to charge your phone? At this moment, Li Ziajin's voice interrupted Zhang Su's thoughts. Zhang Su picked up the phone and took a look. The battery dropped from 2 bars to 1 bar. Chapter 429. Is this fate? Zhang Su picked up the power bank and a suitable charging cable, and said to Li Ziajin, "Thank you. And you can let your wife take a rest. I'm not so unreasonable." "It's okay, sir." Li Ziajin replied a little awkwardly. It seemed that the guests had overheard their conversation just now. "It will be dawn soon, and then we can change shifts with our colleagues." Zhang Su nodded, and then said, "Why don't you accompany me to have a drink? It's my idea at this moment. I'm tired of you." Originally Li Ziajin wanted to refuse, but under Zhang Su's repeated request, he went to the bar to get a cup and came back, and then sat opposite Zhang Su. In fact, Zhang Su and him have nothing to talk about, they just need a place to divert their attention. "Listen to the accent, Mr. Li is from the north, right?" Zhang Su asked while pouring wine for Li Ziajin. "I'm from Tianjin, and I've been in Hong Kong for more than 10 years. Li Ziajin said after taking the wine glass. "It's been so long. Hong Kong was not peaceful more than 10 years ago." Zhang Su said after taking a sip of wine. Mr. Zhang, have you been to Hong Kong before? Li Ziyan asked curiously. That's right. Zhang Su said after taking a sip of wine. At that time, my dad and I were eating chaze noodles on the side of the road, and then we were chased by a gang of hooligans for more than a dozen streets, and finally ran to the wilderness. It's over. Yet, it was a mess at that time. Li Ziyan also recalled the sherry wine from the glass and fell into the memory. When I first came to Hong Kong, I also sold car noodles and fish balls at a roadside stall. I remember that when I set up a stall on the first day, 2 customers from mainland China ate noodles at my place. Later, they saw a group of foreigners chasing a foreign girl, and those 2 customers chased after them. I haven't found them yet. Where's their money? After a long period of time, it should be that foreign girl who came to my stall and asked if she had seen one of the customers that day. We all said we hadn't seen it before, and then the foreign girl often came to my place to eat. We could all see that she was waiting for someone. In Hong Kong, I have seen a lot of people like this. I met someone and then waited for a lifetime. My aunt waited for someone for a lifetime, but nothing came out. Later, thanks to her, everyone saw that even foreigners often come to my place to eat, so they all started to patronize my stall. My wife Anna got married at that time. She lost her job that day, and then saw that I was too busy when eating at my place, so she asked me to ask her to help me for a few days, just take care of the food. The result, days turned into weeks, then months, and finally we became a husband and wife team. Brother Bayo from that street also came later, and he brought his little brother here every night to taste the car noodles and fish balls that even foreigners like. Brother Bayo took good care of me at that time, so the punks on the street didn't come to me. After a few years, the shopping mall was demolished on that street, so I stopped setting up stalls on the side of the road and took the money I saved to take lessons to learn how to cook. I have been a chef since then. I just don't know what happened to that girl. Wait until she is gone. Brother Leopard came to the restaurant where I worked later. He said that he had too many criminal records, so he had to immigrate before '97. Later he went to the United States, but a while ago, according to his former younger brother, he was shot and killed by gangsters in the United States 2 years ago. After Li Ziyan finished speaking, the wine in the wine glass was also finished. Zhang Su refilled another glass for him, and then asked, "Have you thought about going back to your hometown?" "I have this plan." Li Ziyan said, "My wife and I plan to go back to Tianjin to open a Hong Kong-style bar, but now we are a bit undecided. When you are in trouble, I will teach you a way." Zhang Su said, "Flip a coin." Li Ziyan thought Zhang Su was joking and just raised his glass to toast him. "Mr. Li, do you believe in fate?" Zhang Su asked after putting down his glass. Li Ziyan said, "My family told me before that my life is to finish my studies and farm at home. At that time, I was young and did not believe in fate, so I came to Hong Kong. When I first came here, a fortune teller said that there was a noble person in my life to help me, and then the foreign girl became a noble person. So I believe it and I don't believe it. Do you believe that, Zhang Shen?" Zhang Su replied with a wry smile, "I don't even understand what fate is. Where do you tell me to write? I just met an old man with a white beard. He insisted on believing in this. He could live a good life, but he kept walking on the road of death. Maybe the old people think differently from the young people." Li Ziyan said. Just when Zhang Su was about to speak, a text message rang on his cell phone. Zhang Su hurriedly picked up the phone, but he pulled the power bank connected to the phone to the ground. Li Ziyan picked up the charging treasure and left. He knew that this kind of time needs to be avoided. Zhang Su stared blankly at the text messages on his phone for a full 2 minutes, then sighed and leaned heavily on the back of the sofa. After a while, he drank the wine in the bottle in one gulp, stood up, paid a bill and left. When the sun rose, in an interrogation room of the Wazhou City Public Security Bureau, 2 criminal policemen were interrogating a prisoner who had just been arrested. "What's your name?" a criminal policeman asked. "My name is Lucius Malfoy." "Comrade, I understand Chinese, you can speak Chinese with me," the old horse replied. The aged criminal police asked in Chinese instead. 43 years old. Lao Ma replied. Gender, look at it. Native place Wiltshire, England. Work no job. Why did you do it on the street so early in the morning? The criminal policeman asked sharply. The old horse shouted injustice. "Comrade policeman, I just went out early in the morning to drink ice spring soybean milk at the gate of Byron Mountain, but that person stopped me halfway, and it was obviously the person who started the attack. The policeman asked, "Do you know that person?" "I don't know." Malfoy shook his head and said, "That person seems to have followed me all the way from England to France, Germany, Russia and Hong Kong, and finally followed me here. Don't you know to call the police?" The policeman said sternly to the old horse, "You and that British man named Johnny Ingrid are not fighting in the UK or in Europe. Why did you come to us to fight? And you also destroyed many buildings in Kilao City. Our Kilao City is a cultural relic protection unit in Guangxi and a national 4A level tourist attraction. The damage caused is immeasurable. You are going to reform through labor. Lao Ma and his two made too much noise this morning, and foreigners were involved, so it was inevitable that the criminal policeman would hold back his anger." After the interrogation, the criminal policeman said to the old horse again, "You'd better contact your family and prepare money to actively compensate, otherwise you can only go to the farm to grow sugar cane." Now the face of the old horse has turned into a bitter melon. The money in his family is barely enough to maintain daily operations. If he wants to accompany a large sum of money, his son will have to buy second-hand textbooks next semester like the children of the Weasley family did. Period. "Comrade, can I call someone from your country now? He is my son's classmate. Their family is very rich. He should be able to lend me money," Malfoy said to the police. After more than 10 minutes, Lao Ma finally called Zhang Su's cell phone after making a round of calls. Zhang Su, who was about to catch up on sleep, said after hearing the old horse's request, "Is there anything wrong with planting sugarcane? Don't worry, I will take Draco to see you later." Old Horse, Chapter 430. I have durian on my head. In Zhang Su's home, Fu Rong is preparing a sumptuous dinner in the kitchen. Today is the last day of Zhang Su's college entrance examination, so let's celebrate well. When Fu Rong, who was humming, poured a pot of Buddha jumping over the wall on the stove, the phone at home suddenly rang. "Hello, is Zhang Su at home?" The other end of the phone spoke in English, "I'm Draco Malfoy. He hasn't come back yet, what can I do for you?" Fu Rong asked. She knew about Xiao Ma, and she also knew that Xiao Ma had always been at odds with Zhang Su, so she found it strange that Xiao Ma called from all the way. After the other end of the phone faltered for a while, Xiao Ma said, "I want to ask Zhang for a favor. Only he can help me with this favor." "What's the matter?" Fu Rong asked curiously. "He won't come back in a few hours, you can tell me first, and I'll tell him when he comes back." After hesitating for a while, Xiao Ma said, "Can I ask him to take care of my two children?" Xiao Ma finished the ins and outs of the matter according to the script provided by Zhang Su, and then nervously waited for the answer from the other end of the phone. After a few minutes, the other party didn't reply. Just when Xiao Ma thought the phone was broken, a cold voice came from the other end of the phone. "Could it be Zhang Su's child? And then he asked you to bring it back, pretending to be your child." Xiao Ma instantly felt a chill coming from the other end of the phone, which made him shiver. Student Xiao Ma immediately picked up the piece of parchment in his left hand, found the item Delacour suspects that the child is mine, and read it according to the following countermeasures. "No, definitely not, as this was a mistake I made accidentally. Be sincere in your tone." Xiao Ma was nervous and read out the content in the brackets at the end. You can call again in the evening." At this moment, the feeling when facing Voldemort for the first time rose in Xiao Ma's heart. After more than an hour, Scarlet rang the doorbell of Zhang Su's house with a bag of fruit. What happened in England made her physically and mentally exhausted, and after returning home, there was another round of family chores, so she simply went to Zhang Su to make light bulbs. The gate opened quickly, but Scarlet was taken aback by Fleur's face that seemed to have dropped to absolute zero behind the gate. When Scarlet followed Fleur carefully to the living room and just put the lychee she brought on the coffee table, she heard Fleur ask coldly, "Are the children all right?" Degree. Scarlet looked at Fleur in a daze, scratched her head, not understanding what she was talking about. Still pretending to be stupid, "Didn't you ask Draco Malfoy to bring your child back?" Pretending to be his child, Fleur sneered and said while looking at Scarlet. At this moment, Scarlet made a rough guess about the matter, which shocked her. "I don't have it, it's not mine." "Don't talk nonsense," Scarlet hastily denied. "You know my situation, I really want to have a baby with that guy, and the ghost standing in front of you now. Even if I ask that guy for help to have a child, I'll take it home and raise it myself, so I don't need to ask Malfoy to make a fuss." After hearing what the other party said, Fleur also calmed down. After putting away the magic wand in her hand, she sat on the sofa and explained to Scarlet in detail what Pony had mentioned on the phone. Then Scarlet used the method of elimination to screen all the possibilities one by one. Firstly, Malfoy was telling the truth, and secondly, the teachers and students in Hogwarts were excluded one by one. When Zhang Su came back from the exam and stood in the living room with a durian weighing more than 10 kilograms, Scarlet couldn't figure out who the woman was, so he had to let Zhang Su confess. "It's really not my child." Zhang Su denied again, dumbfounded, while maintaining the balance of the durian above his head. At this moment, he already had a plan in his mind to deal with Malfoy. "Then whose is it?" Fu Rong asked while resting her nails with a magic wand. I don't know how many times she asked this question today. Zhang Su just refused to say it before. It seems that this matter can't be fooled as originally planned, although it can be explained when the two babies come, but maybe it will be past their first 7 by then. Okay, let me tell you about the two children, but you have to be mentally prepared. Zhang Su said while taking the durian off his head. Could it be Dumbledore's child? Fu Rong, who didn't know much about old Deng, asked. As a result, Zhang Su's hand slipped, and the durian in his hand hit his foot. After putting the durian away and sitting on the sofa covering his feet, Zhang Su said, "The names of the two children are Elsas Black and Gina Black." At this time, Zhang Su has a lot of opinions on Xioma. When this guy called, he actually forgot to mention the names of the two children. Otherwise, Scarlet would definitely be able to guess after hearing their surnames something. Just like now, someone in C almost choked the lychee in his mouth after hearing these two names. She counted on her fingers, and then asked in horror, "Voldemort gave Malfoy's wife to the unspoken rules." "Half right," Zhang Su replied, "but it was her sister who was unspoken." After being shut for a few minutes, Fu Rong said quietly, "Is this an excuse you just came up with?" No, Zhang Su denied, "because the other party's identity is too sensitive, so I don't want to say it, and few people know about it." Then Zhang Su went to the study and took out a pensieve, and showed the two of them the memory of his negotiation with Voldemort. It's just that a picture of the two girls with their heads stuck in the pensieve is really cool, and now it's summer, and Zhang Su swallowed his saliva, and then went to the refrigerator to take a bottle of Benkualo and poured it into his stomach to calm down. When the two got up from the pensieve in shock, there were 3 more empty bottles in the trash basket. After the two of them sat down, Zhang Su looked at Scarlet and asked, "What do you think about this matter? If you don't want to, I will find another way." In the beginning, Zhang Su was unwilling to tell the truth of the matter because he cared about her thoughts. After all, there was a great hatred between their families. Scarlet was stunned for a moment, then remained silent for a while, and finally sighed and said, "Forget it, what is the rivalry between me and the two children? How can we say that we were a family 500 years ago? When the time comes, we will train them to become an Auror from the British Ministry of Magic would do." Zhang Su almost spit out a mouthful of old blood. He raised the child to be the enemy of his parents. After finally resolving the turmoil, Zhang Su went to the kitchen to make dinner. Fu Rong was angry because of a misunderstanding just now, so she threw away the half-cooked dinner. At this moment, Xioma's second call came. After Zhang Su complained to him, he asked him to bring the child here as soon as possible and settle it down. Then he still has other things to do. Draco Malfoy moved very quickly. 3 days later, he brought Elsas Black and Gina Black, who were just born, and a nanny he hired in England. Because Zhang Su made a phone call in advance to explain the situation, there was no Oolong in Zhang Su's hometown. Under the check waved by Malfoy, a family that had a baby boy not long ago adopted the little brother and sister. It's just that Malfoy was scolded by a group of 7 ants and 8 ants for a long time, and finally had to flee in panic and ran to help his father pay the fine. 11 years later, the siblings removed their acceptance letter from the foot of a dying owl, and that was the beginning of another story. Chapter 431 The Disappearance of Harry Potter. In the middle of the night, no. Privet Drive is quiet, only the leaves are rustling. What a night, what a dream, what a charming evening. Moody led his people to the gate and stared blankly to see that there was no sound in the room. I want to tell you, I don't know how to say it, Harry Potter is gone, the long night is about to pass and the sky's getting bright, and he is also confused, Voldemort. Harry disappeared. Lio, both sides were dumbfounded, on this London night. On the night of July 4th, Moody led a group of members of the Order of the Phoenix to number 17 Privet Drive, planning to get Harry Potter to safety before his, th birthday. But when the group of them arrived at number 4, Privet Drive, they found that the lights in the house were not turned on, and it was pitch black everywhere. Moody checked around with his fake eye and found no one in the room. Then everyone searched the house carefully, and found that except for the cage of Harry's owl Hedwig, which was opened, all of Harry's luggage was left in his room, including his broomstick. Now the members of the Order of the Phoenix are all dumbfounded. It is agreed that Lily's magic can protect Harry until he is 17 years old. Alice Longbottom looked at Black and asked, could it be that Harry gave birth one day prematurely and the Potters didn't tell everyone? Black, whose hands were already trembling, shook his head and said, no, I still remember that Harry was born not long after I arrived at James' house. Alice Longbottom continued, then is it possible that the children of James and Lily are actually twins, and the younger brother was born when you went there, and the older brother was picked up by Dumbledore? Cough cough. Frank Barton interrupted his wife with black hair, Alice, you should read less novels. If she is allowed to go on, she can tell a novel with twists and turns and soul-stirring. It's just a side effect of the treatment. Frank Barton thought it's not bad for me and my wife to turn from a lunatic to a normal person. It's a pity that she has some side effects such as brainstorming occasionally. Then what do we do now? Ron asked, frowning. Let's check the house again. Black and Ron are going to pack up Harry's luggage and take them away. Maybe we can find some clues in it. Moody said, be quick, maybe the Death Eaters are already there waiting for us around. When Black and the others had packed everything in Harry's room except the furniture, Moody and the others also ended the useless second inspection. As the commander of today's operation, Moody was very decisive. When tonight's operation personnel assembled, he ordered, in 2 minutes, we will fly out of each door and window on brooms at the same time, and then fly upward as fast as possible. Do you understand? After everyone nodded in agreement, they each found their starting positions. When the time came, more than a dozen members of the Order of the Phoenix rushed out of number 4 Privet Drive on broomsticks at the same time, and then flew towards the night sky at an almost vertical height. At this moment, black shadows soared into the sky around Privet Drive, surrounding everyone in the Order of the Phoenix. But everyone in the Order of the Phoenix didn't seem to see them, they just kept flying high into the sky. These Death Eaters charged towards the Order of the Phoenix on their broomsticks, but they found helplessly that the speed of their broomsticks didn't seem to be powerful enough for the opponent. In no time, the members of the Order of the Phoenix had left the Death Eaters far behind. Immediately afterwards, the Death Eaters were stunned to see a gigantic flying object appear in the sky, and members of the Order of the Phoenix flew through its open doors. When everyone entered the space shuttle from Hogwarts, it accelerated and gradually disappeared into the night sky. In the cabin, Hermione, who was on standby here, happily came to the foyer to greet Harry, but when she arrived, she found that all the people involved in the operation tonight were standing there dejectedly, but Harry was nowhere to be seen. Soon, the vehicle driven by Hagrid under the name of Daily Maintenance landed on the grass next to the burrow, and drove back before it was discovered. At the moment, the burrow was gloomy, and the collective disappearance of Harry and his aunt's family made everyone lose interest in talking. Mrs. Weasley was there wiping away tears with a handkerchief, while her wives-to-be comforted her softly. And Ginny also had red eyes, lowered her head and said nothing. Everyone was frowning, thinking about where Harry was going. Although Harry was probably captured and killed by Voldemort, none of the people present gave up any hope. In other words, Harry is the only hope left by Dumbledore in their hearts. In the burrow, it was Black who finally broke the suffocating silence. He said to everyone, let's see if there are any clues in what Harry left behind. The others had no objection, so they followed Black to unpack the luggage they brought back from Harry's room on Privet Drive, and began to check one by one. Soon, everyone found the video brooch that Zhang Su sold him many years ago in Harry's luggage. Where did you find it? Moody asked Black and Ron. It was at Harry's bedside, said Ron. I put him in the box. We might be able to see something from inside, Black said excitedly, then we'll open it up. Black remembered Harry saying he had a habit of using the video brooch as a dash cam so he could see what was going on. Gentlemen, there is something that needs to be confirmed before that. Alice Longbottom said suddenly, Ginny, Harry won't be wearing it when he's with you. Other people present who didn't know Harry's habits felt that what Alice Longbottom said was very reasonable. Everyone has experienced the rainy season at the age of 17. If there are some content in the video brooch that is not suitable for parents, it will be so public it's not good to let it out, And now the scene becomes embarrassing. Ron stopped there holding his wand and preparing to open the video projection of the brooch. Everyone else present looked at Ginny, but the blushing Ginny kept shaking her head in denial. Then Ron opened the video brooch, and a 3D projection shot out from the crystal on the brooch, but what everyone saw was a strange ceiling. At the next moment, everyone heard the sound of the door opening, and then Harry's voice, "Come in, Mom." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 432. Harry was taken away by a woman. In the burrow, the atmosphere began to become suddenly weird, but no one spoke. They were all quietly waiting for the next one. "Sorry, it's a little messy in the room." Everyone could hear the strain in Harry's voice. At this time, a clear and sweet female voice sounded, "It's okay, the room of young people is always full of vitality." After Harry made a few embarrassed there was a sound of chairs being moved in the room, and Harry asked the other party to sit down. "Don't be so formal, just consider it when we meet in Hogsmeade." The female voice sounded again, "Tomorrow is your 17th birthday, and this is a gift from us." After a while, Harry said, "Thank you for the gift, I will cherish it, Mom." Then Harry continued, "Are those guarantees you just said true?" "Sorry, I didn't intend to doubt you, but you appeared too suddenly." The lady's voice said, "We're sure the Dursleys will live in a safe place, and you don't have to worry about that. As for us, I thought you already thought we'd come to you. So what do you need me to do?" Harry could hear the confusion in his voice. "Before I talk about this, I think you need to read these letters." The lady said, "After reading these letters, I want to hear your thoughts, because the content mentioned in the letters is ours. The basis for working with you." After that, the room fell into silence, except for the occasional sound of flipping papers. Half an hour later, everyone in the burrow heard Harry sigh deeply, and then Harry said, "I really didn't expect this to happen. He didn't have these things with me. There are some things we can only rely on ourselves. From our standpoint, that guy is not a good partner." The woman said, "So we found you, and we need your strength. I don't think it's a problem. I think we can work together happily." Then Harry asked in surprise, "It's just that the last letter mentioned asking you to provide Draco Malfoy and his 2 children. What's the matter with help? He's got a baby. How do I know about you young people?" The lady sighed, "You Hogwarts students are so open. If you choose to cooperate with us, I think we can talk in another place." The woman finally said. "No problem," said Harry, "but first I need to write a letter for Hedwig to send to my friend." Then there was a silence, then the flapping of an owl's wings, and finally the closing of the door. After the sound of closing the door, the room fell into silence. Ron clicked to replay, but no one went in until they entered the room to check. This conversation is very informative for everyone in the burrow, especially the last 2 sentences mentioned by Zyoma, but before that, they had to figure out who the woman who took Harry Potter and the Dursleys away was. "Has anyone heard that voice before?" Moody asked. The people in the burrow looked at each other, and Black, Mr. Weasley, and several people in Hogwarts said that none of them had heard the voice. However, there is a person here who is bowing his head in thought. "Frank, do you have any clues?" Moody asked Frank Barton. "I seem to have heard this sound in Hogsmeade before." Franco Barton recalled, "I remembered that I heard this sound when I passed a room above the Hogshead pub before Easter last year. At that time, the voice mentioned a place called the Pont du Gardien, and later another young man's voice in that room mentioned 50,000 francs of diamonds. Then the room was enchanted with soundproofing. Then why don't you go in and check it out?" Black asked angrily, "Isn't it your job as Aurors to interrogate wizards with doubts?" "But we don't think there's anything unusual about adding soundproofing magic to a room when a young man and woman are alone in the room," said Mr. Longbottom, spreading his hands. An NBSP, Black got discouraged after a few s, and he knew that Mr. Longbottom and the others couldn't be blamed for this. "Then what do the Dougal Bridge Inn and the 50,000 francs of diamonds mean?" asked Lupin. "Could it be a sign of a joint?" This is an important plot on the novel The Count of Monte Cristo by the famous French Muggle writer Alexandre Dumas. This book can be bought almost all over the world. "I think this is just a joke between 2 people," Hermione said. "It can only be said that the other party is very familiar with Muggle affairs. Why don't we call Zhang and ask Zhang?" Ron suggested. By the way, Mr. Longbottom said suddenly, the voice of the man in the room should belong to Mr. Zhang. No wonder I always felt it was vaguely familiar. I'll call him and ask who that woman is, said Ron. There's a public phone in the village. At this time, Tanya, who had been comforting Mrs. Weasley just now, was returning from the summer vacation to get married, and said, let me call. If I can't reach him, I can let Fleur or Scarlet find him. Now it's almost 2 o'clock, it's already morning over there, they should have gotten up. After finishing speaking, Tanya went upstairs to her room to get her mobile phone. Fortunately, the burrow is not like Hogwarts, where the mobile phone and radio can be used normally. She dialed Fu Rong's cell phone directly, and said in the first sentence, Fu Rong, is Zhang busy? Please ask him for me. I was with him in the upstairs room of the Pig's Head Bar one night before Easter last year. Who is that lady with a nice voice? Before she hung up the phone, she heard the voice of Fu Rong asking Scarlet to go to the supermarket together to see if there were durians with skins on sale here in Japan. That person's figured out. Tanya said to the people in the burrow who were nervously waiting for her news. That woman is an agent of the British Intelligence Agency. Her name is unknown. Her current code name is Wales. It appears that someone from the British government took Harry and his relatives away. That's fine. Relieved, Black slumped on the chair, as long as he isn't taken away by the mysterious person. For more than a year, members of the Order of the Phoenix have cooperated with government forces, and they are still reliable allies, so there is no need to worry about Harry's safety. I'll contact Lupin immediately and ask him to confirm the situation with the other side. Black stood up and said, didn't Harry ask Hedwig to deliver the letter? Tonks asked suddenly, so where is Hedwig now? Perhaps he sent the letter to 12 Grimwald Place, and possibly here, said Moody. These two places were just bewitched this morning, and now even the owls can't find them. Place. Hedwig may be nearby now, let's go out and look for it right now, Ron jumped up and said. After speaking, Ron, Hermione, Ginny and the twins, who were familiar with Hedwig, hurried towards the door. At this moment, there was a knock on the door of the burrow. Open the door, I'm Lupin, I'm taking Harry. Everyone in the burrow was stunned for a moment. What's going on? Black hurried to the back of the gate, got the signal with Lupin and opened the door. Lupin walked in with Harry walking in as if he had fallen asleep, supporting his whole body with no strength. My God, what's wrong with Harry? Mrs. Weasley rushed up, and then she smelled the alcohol wafting from Harry. I'll go upstairs and get him some hangover medicine, said someone with experience. People from the government invited Harry to be a guest this afternoon, and then they held a birthday party for Harry in advance. Lupin said after pulling up a chair and sitting down, it turned out that just after midnight, the people attending the party gave Harry drank, and Harry went crazy on the spot. He made a fuss about coming here, so they told me to go and get Harry back. Everyone in the Order of the Phoenix thinks that the alpaca is galloping. We are worried about you. You actually eat and drink too much. Harry, wake up. Black patted Harry on the shoulder. Drunk Harry woke up with the first words, oh, Ginny, where's Ginny? The whole place was silent. Dong Naya, who was holding the hangover medicine, stopped on the stairs. Intuition and experience told her that there will be a good show to watch later. Chapter 433. Who I am, where am I, what am I doing? Harry Potter opened his eyes, staring at the strange ceiling in a daze. Now he feels a little pain in his head, not the pain from the scar like before, but the whole brain like a needle prick. He sat up with difficulty, turned his head to look out the window, and found that the scenery outside the window was so familiar. He remembered that when he first came to the shabby residence, he would often lie on the window sill with Ron and Hermione and chat while looking at the scenery outside the window. At this time, he heard a sound in the corner of the room, and he turned his head to see his owl, Hedwig, trimming the feathers on her wings in the cage. Rubbing his temples vigorously, Harry remembered what had happened yesterday. Just after lunch yesterday at Privet Drive, the Dursleys were arguing about a move because in less than 12 hours, Harry's mother's protective magic will expire. According to the original plan, the Dursleys would leave Privet Drive in a few hours and accept the protection of the Order of the Phoenix. Just then, the doorbell rang. Uncle Vernon went to open the door, and then he led the three guests into the living room nervously, and then asked Aunt Petunia to serve the best tea. At the same time, Harry and Dudley were called into the living room together. Harry was surprised to find that he knew two of the three visitors. He saw a young boy in military uniform catching sheep in the Forbidden Forest, and Zhang Su called him Belle at that time. Another lady in business attire surprised him even more, because she was one of the 4 waitresses in the cafe in Hogsmeade, and the white-haired old man sitting in the middle who looks like a gentleman's textbook seems to have seen it on TV. During the conversation between the extremely reserved Uncle Vernon and the old man, Harry knew his identity as Lord Rodney, a member of the House of Lords of the British Parliament. However, what happened next ruined the 3 views of the Dursley family, because the MP was also a wizard like Harry Potter. It took some time for the Dursleys to come to terms with the fact that Mr. Rodney revealed his purpose. First of all, on behalf of the British government, he stated that he could provide protection for the Dursley family, and if necessary, allow their family to temporarily live in Canada, Australia or New Zealand. Vernon immediately agreed with Mr. Rodney's suggestion, and he was more willing to believe in the government than the Order of the Phoenix, which looked weird. Secondly, Mr. Rodney, on behalf of relevant departments of the British government, invited Harry Potter to cooperate in order to more effectively combat the increasingly rampant Death Eater gang. After some persuasion and communication, Harry agreed to the other party's invitation. An important reason for Harry's agreement was that he thought that Voldemort would not have thought that he would leave Privet Drive with other people, and that those who came to the Order of the Phoenix would not have to take the risk of picking him up. So Harry wrote to Ron, telling him that he was going to have a meeting with people from the government, and asked Lupin to pick him up afterwards, and asked Ron to help him come to Privet Drive to move his luggage to the Burrow, and let Hyde deliver the letter to the Burrow. Only then did Harry know that Lupin was the liaison between the Order of the Phoenix and the relevant government departments. After delivering the letter, that Belle drove the Dursleys, who were ready to move, to the airport, while Harry himself drove with Mr. Rodney and the lady to a heavily guarded manor outside London. In the afternoon, Harry and a group of people in suits, military uniforms and police uniforms exchanged information about Voldemort and Death Eaters in a conference room intelligence. In the evening, they threw a birthday party for Harry. It turned out that just after midnight, they began to toast Harry, who was already an adult wizard. Harry couldn't remember anything after that. After thinking about it for a while and feeling that there was nothing to gain except a headache, Harry got off the bed, got dressed, and went downstairs to the dining room. "Harry, you're awake." Mrs. Weasley enthusiastically got up from the chair, walked to Harry's side and gave him a hug. "Are you hungry? Come and have breakfast. Charlie just came back." Only then did Harry realize that the dining room was neatly staffed. The Weasleys, including Percy, were all seated at the dining table. Besides, Clemens, Posey and Tanya, who were going to marry in a few days, and Hermione, Black, and the Lupins were there. After greeting everyone, Harry sat next to Lupin and complained to him why he didn't invite him to the wedding. Percy, who was sitting diagonally across from Harry, said to him, "Harry, I want to talk to you after breakfast." "What is it?" Harry said, picking up the sandwich from his plate. "About the people who came to you yesterday," said Percy. Harry nodded. Then Harry asked, "How did I get here last night?" In the next second, except for Charlie and Percy, everyone's expressions became weird, and they seemed to be holding back their laughter. Ginny lowered her head and said nothing. Ron had already buried his face in the tablecloth. Hermione patted him on the shoulder. The twin brothers' eyeballs rolled around as if they were planning something, and Tanya was whispering to Charlie something that seems very interesting. "Harry, do you really not remember?" Tonks Lupin asked with a suppressed smile. Harry shook his head in bewilderment. Immediately afterwards, Fred took out a pair of glasses and put them on, and George got up and stood beside Ginny. Fred, sitting in the chair, imitated Harry's voice and shouted, "Oh, Ginny, where's Ginny?" Then he staggered to his feet like he was drunk, and walked over to where Ginny was. Just as Fred was swaying towards Ginny, George, who was standing next to Ginny with a name and an arrow on his head, took a step and stopped Fred. "Ron." Then Fred hugged George, and continued to say in Harry's voice, "Hey Ginny, your hair is getting shorter and it's also getting taller, but I like it. Here, I told you." Wait until what? Before Fred and George finished their performance, they were jointly suppressed by Ron and Ginny. Harry himself stayed there with a sandwich in his mouth. At this moment, the restaurant is full of laughter and laughter. At the same time, Voldemort was rarely in bed, and his heart was racing with llamas. "What happened last night? That I actually dreamed that I hugged Ron from the Weasley family and kissed him on the face. Could it be that I slept in the wrong position last night? How about I change my position and sleep again?" Chapter 434 Hyogo Northern Rain 19 degrees Celsius 60% 40%. In a mountain in Kanosaki, Northern Hyogo Prefecture, Japan, there is a small and exquisite hot spring hotel. This hotel is not open to ordinary tourists and only accepts guests who have made an appointment in advance. The background owner of this hotel is a political broker who is active in the political circle in Tokyo. The hot spring hotel he carefully built is a place where he makes deals with various politicians and businessmen. It's just that the people staying here today are not those middle-aged and elderly successful people with young secretaries in the past, but Zhang Su and his party. But in a sense, it can also be said that a young successful person brings his middle-aged secret and hide. Don't care about the content that rolls out with a durian roll keyboard hide, because Zhang Su killed several hijackers on a passenger plane to Germany and rescued all the passengers, including a Japanese high school student tour group. The families of these Japanese passengers invited Zhang Su to thank Zhang Su. He came to Japan when he was free, so that they could show their friendship as a landlord. Zhang Su, who had just returned to school and was just struggling for the college entrance examination, took the time to call Furin after receiving the invitation letter to discuss the itinerary for this summer vacation. Because of that phone call, Zhang Su's puppy love was exposed in front of the school leaders. For this reason, the director of the political and educational department also had a private conversation with Zhang Su. After 2 hours of conversation, the director of the political and educational department finally knew the reason why he was still single in his 30s. After Zhang Su filled out his application form, he took Furin and a large light bulb on his trip to Japan. Zhang Su is glad that the place where he entertained today is not Tankin Hot Spring, otherwise Fu Rong and Scarlet would have kicked him to the mouth of the hot spring if he couldn't buy durian with skin on, and then put potatoes, carrots, star anise, cinnamon into the water. Leaves, pepper, ginger, dried chili, and cooking wine in moderation. The water temperature of that hot spring reaches 98 C. It was already night at this time. Although it was the end of July, the temperature in the mountains was slightly lower, so it was a good time to soak in the hot springs. There are maple trees around the hot spring and on the opposite mountain. If it is autumn, you can soak in the hot spring and enjoy the beautiful scenery of the frosty leaves are red and February flowers all over the mountain. Another pity is that it is not the season to eat Matsuba crabs, but the hairy crabs and Tajima beef kaiseki dishes transported by air from Seoul also made Zhang Su and his group worthwhile. In the past 2 days, Zhang Su and his team visited Osaka Castle, where Toyotomi Hideyoshi lived after the castle tower was renovated, the world's largest aquarium, Tempest Kaiyukin, and the Tempest Ferris wheel. So the local tyrant who was in charge of arranging their travel in Osaka arranged the last stop of the group's trip to Osaka here. Since it was reserved, the hotel manager thoughtfully put away the movable partition that separated the men's and women's baths in the hot spring. In the hot spring pool, Furin sat in the middle. Her whole body was flushed red from the hot spring. Zhang Su felt that she would be fully cooked if she soaked for a longer time. "Where are we going to play tomorrow?" Fu Rong asked Zhang Su, who was sitting not far away. "Go to Okinawa for 2 days tomorrow, and then transfer to Hong Kong for Paris." Zhang Su replied. "Is Hong Kong fun?" Fu Rong asked. "It's a pity that I couldn't ask for leave and couldn't go there." "You should ask her." Zhang Su pointed to someone who was sipping sake in the hot spring. "How familiar is she with that place?" "How about a day trip to the bottom of Victoria Bay?" Scarlet said after finishing his drink. "Not so good." Zhang Su shook his head violently. At this moment, Furin's cell phone rang again. Fu Rong turned around and picked up the phone, said a few words in French and threw the phone to Zhang Su. "It's Potter," Fleur said. "Hello, it's Harry." Zhang Su greeted the person on the other end after catching the phone. "Zhang, where are you now?" Harry asked. "I'm in Japan now, and I'm going to England in a few days." "What's the matter?" Zhang Su replied. "Now the Minister of Magic, Scrimgeour, is here, and he has brought Dumbledore's will, in which Dumbledore has something to give you." Harry said on the other end of the phone. "What is that?" Zhang Su asked in surprise. "It can't be the headmaster of Hogwarts." The other end of the phone said for a long time, and Harry continued after a while, "Those are 3 dice. No matter how you roll them, they will always roll a 2 and 2 threes. Zhang Su was silent for a while, and then said to Harry, "Then you put it away for me first, and you can give it to me when I arrive in England." "Okay," said Harry. "By the way, I have a question for you. I'll talk about it when I get to England." In order to have a good mood and enjoy the remaining few days of vacation, Zhang Su stopped Harry's words. "That's it, I'll hang up." After returning the phone to Fu Rong, Zhang Su sighed, leaned against the hot spring pool, looked up at the full moon hanging in the sky through the leaves of the maple tree swaying in the wind. After returning to China, apart from the text message he received from Dobby on the day of Hong Kong's handover, and the day Scarlet told him about what happened in Hogwarts that night when he had durian on his head, Zhang Su had no plans before returning to the UK. I took the initiative to obtain information about the UK. Furin could see the anger, sadness and helplessness in Zhang Su's heart during this time, and he deliberately avoided this question. She also wanted to help Zhang Su share some pressure on this issue, but on this issue, Zhang Su firmly rejected Fu Rong's suggestion to go to England to help him. Fleur reached out and poked Scarlet, who was on the other side of her, but Scarlet just sighed and shook his head, then continued to drink by himself. An NBSP, at this time, the manager of the hotel said to Zhang Su and the others in a panic through the door, "No, Mr. Zhang, we received a call from the police just now, half an hour ago. We were on the side of the road 1 kilometer away. Someone found a black bear running into the mountain. It was probably attracted by the smell of a kitchen waste in our hotel. Please, Mr. Zhang, go back to your room to avoid it. Can you cook bear dishes?" Zhang Su asked. The nanny hotel manager couldn't figure out why the guests' thoughts turned to cooking. "What I mean is, if I catch that bear, can you cook it? There won't be any legal trouble, right?" Zhang Su continued to ask. At this time, the hotel manager was already sweating profusely. He had been helping the boss manage the hotel for more than 20 years. There were many guests who made various strange requests, but this was the first time I saw such unreasonable guests. However, my boss asked me to take good care of today's distinguished guest, who is also the savior of the boss's only son, so the hotel manager answered Zhang Su's question according to Zhang Su's intention. "Osaka has a family heirloom bear chef. He is very famous in the Kansai area. We can invite him. As long as you don't get caught, there is no legal trouble. In our place, a lot of hotels like ours lose a bear or two every year." After finishing speaking, the hotel manager thought that maybe this guest wanted to try bear hunting, and then he could show it off in front of his girlfriend when he came back. The security guard in the hotel is retired from the self-defense forces. If you ask him to pick up the guy who was accidentally dropped by other guests in the hotel, there should be no problem. At that time, the credit for killing the bear will be placed on the head of the guest. Period. It has to be said that the manager has been able to work in this hotel with a difficult background for so long, and his ability is still very strong. He thought of the guest's thoughts in an instant and made corresponding arrangements. "Then you go and prepare," Zhang Su said to the manager. The hotel manager thought that Zhang Su was asking him to arrange staff, so he left in a hurry. When Zhang Su got up to leave the hot spring, Scarlet raised the wine glass in his hand and said, "The wine is strong, you don't go until you have a drink. Let's pour the wine, and come as soon as you go. It is not very troublesome to find a black bear in the woods." Zhang Zufei went to the top of the mountain and added a wind ear to himself, and soon heard the sound of the black bear walking in the mountain. At this time, the black bear was not far from the top of the mountain, and when it climbed over the top of the mountain, it would be able to see the pool where Zhang Su was soaking in the hot spring just now. Wargo Zhang Su immediately transformed into Zhang Panda, rushed up to hold down the black bear and beat him up. At the same time, in the hot spring, Scarlet asked Fleur, "You just let him mess around like this? Hey, he's not happy, so let him fight the bear to vent it." Fu Rong said after sighing. "Isn't it okay to let him fight with you two goblins to vent?" A middle-aged woman who looked very young switched to ant mode under the influence of alcohol. "How about I throw him into your room to let you vent?" Fleur said after casting a sideways glance at Scarlet. "I'm going to die," Scarlet said with black hair. "Didn't you say you're fine if you're not pregnant?" Fu Rong asked, pretending to be surprised. "I said, what are you going to do with me?" Scarlet said drunkenly. There was only a slight hint of Tanya, but you quietly asked that old man to help arrange for her to meet Charlie on campus. As a result, the two of them are now ready to get married. How about letting you accidentally get drunk and drown in the hot spring?" Fleur said to Scarlet with a smile. "Then you might as well let me have a baby with him before you die. At least you can have a good time before you die," a drunk guy said. "What can I do?" Fu Rong said helplessly. "According to the biography, I met him first, but according to the chronicle, it was you who met him first. But you have been at Hogwarts for so long, I'm very satisfied that I didn't even attack you. Let's talk about it later." Zhang Panda, who beat the black bear to the brink of death, didn't know that there was a sudden showdown in his backyard. Just when he was about to give the black bear a fatal blow, there was a loud noise in the distance. Panda Zhang hastily slapped the black bear on the head, and after killing the black bear, it changed back into human form. The hotel manager didn't wait for Zhang Su to come out at the gate, and only after asking a waitress did he find out that he had already entered the mountain through the path at a back door rushed to. Not long after entering the mountain, they heard a lot of movement on the top of the mountain, so they quickened their pace. When they arrived, they saw Zhang Su in a spotless bathrobe sitting on a rock under the light of the moonlight and the flashlight, and the body of the beaten black bear was lying at his feet. "Please carry it back, we will stay for another day tomorrow, and we will wait for the chef you introduced to cook it." After Zhang Su finished speaking, he turned and went down the mountain. Decades later, the staff of that hotel are all old. Whenever they recall the past with their families, they always think of that night in the bright moonlight, and saw the burly man with the green cloth bathrobe and black belt back view. Alice. I don't know when I will meet that hero again. Chapter 435 Bearpaw. There are fresh ones here. Zhang Da Panda Wenji was not injured when he beat Taishuang, but he also broke out in sweat. Although a small spell can get rid of the sweat on his body, Zhang Su still chose to soak in the hot spring for a while. A warm bath after strenuous exercise is a very enjoyable thing. At this time, the sky began to rain again, adding a touch of coolness to the mountain forest at night in summer. When Zhang Su returned to the hot spring, he looked at the two ketone bodies in the pool that had been soaked in hot water and were ruddy, lying on their stomachs and floating on the water. What the hell is this? Two people fell into the water and almost drowned. Let's see which rhythm I save first. Come on, you guys are wizards, okay? The traces of magic are so obvious on your body, you'll be fine after soaking like this for more than a month until the Mid-Autumn Festival, okay? Drinking Shang Wen's sake, Zhang Su humming. When I opened the door, I saw my wife fell to the ground with a kitchen knife stuck in her back, and there was a sea of blood on the ground. Zhang Su saw Fu Rong and Scarlet jumping out of the water. After Li stood up, he smiled and said to them, "Your breath-holding competition is over." Then Zhang was beaten up by the two of them. Well, let them vent their anger. Zhang Su, who held his head in his hands and had a nosebleed, thought. It's not that he doesn't know what the problem is. Overnight, the book will not repeat. It was impossible for Zhang Su and the others to eat a black bear weighing several hundred kgs by themselves, so he invited all the officials and wealthy businessmen who invited him to Japan for this trip. In the end, this banquet also became a social event. In ancient Japan, most wizards appeared to the public as on magi. Although Japan's Ministry of Magic has also joined the International Confederation of Wizards and abides by the International Statute of Secrecy, the thousands-year-old tradition cannot be easily changed by the International Confederation of Wizards in Europe. Therefore, it can be said that Japanese dignitaries hire wizards as consultants. It's an unspoken tradition. It's just that in the war half a century ago, Japanese wizards were severely injured and have not been able to recover until now. Even the School of Magic that trains wizards has experienced two disasters in a short period of time. Once, it was breached by Chinese alchemists running long distances, and then it was demolished to pieces. Zhang Su even scoured some stone materials from the antique market and used them to pave the stone road in the back garden. The second time, during the Battle of Okinawa, the U.S. Pacific Fleet accidentally received wrong information in orders, and then the mountaintop of South Okinawa, where the magic is located, was washed by Missouri and the others. Now Zhang Su can be regarded as a word-of-mouth figure among the high-level European magic circles, and the Japanese wizards who have close ties with Europe have naturally heard of him, and Fu Rong was a participant in the Triwizard Tournament back then. One of the contestants, so their identities were also exposed by the advisors who follow those dignitaries. Foreign wizards are good at reciting spells. An excellent student from Hogwarts, a professor from Hogwarts, and an outstanding graduate from Boxbuttons. The combination of 3 teachers and students from a well-established European school is enough to make everyone present. The high-ranking officials and nobles were taken aback for a while, so they increased their emotional investment one after another. And Zhang Su also struck while the iron was hot, and began to match his own business. Aunt Niu's father said that wild bear meat has a foul and fishy smell, and those bears without these smells are artificially raised, and the chef invited from Osaka was obviously prepared for this. He made the black bear that was beaten to pieces into a bear meat hot pot, which was very delicious under the influence of spices, and everyone ate it full of praise, and the legendary bear's paws taste plump and fat, but Zhang feels that there will be 2 malicious eyes staring at his hands from time to time, which makes him a little frightened. In the end, the bear skin was given to the owner of the hotel after Zhang Su repaired it with magic. It is very necessary for Zhang Su to befriend such a power broker. After leaving Osaka, I enjoyed a round of sunshine, beaches, sweet potato towers, Okinawa soba noodles, salted fish tofu, ishigaki beef, sea grapes, fruit vinegar salad, taco rice, agu black pork dishes, and seafood dinner in Okinawa. After drinking with Aomori, Zhang Su and his party embarked on a journey to Europe. Separation Line, a coffee shop near the headquarters of the International Auror Organization in Lyon, France. You won't go back to Bill and Charlie's wedding in a few days? Zhang Su asked Percy, who was sitting opposite, while stirring the coffee that had just been sweetened with milk. I won't go back. The Rainbow Squad has just been formed, and it's still in the running-in period. If I leave now, it won't affect me well. Percy replied. I think it's because your brothers are all married, and now you're the only one who is single, so you're embarrassed to go back. With a funny face asked in a harsh tone. Percy squinted at Zhang Su and said, believe it or not, I'll call a dozen people to beat you up. Hey, you little rookie is so prestigious now. Zhang Su asked in surprise, it's only been less than a week since you all assembled. I'm here to conquer them, Percy said, pointing to his brain. Whoever refuses to accept should give him a headbutt. Zhang Su continued to ask. Then Percy rolled his eyes at the guy. After being silent for a while, Zhang Su asked in a deep voice, what happened that night? Oh. Percy sighed deeply. He knew what Zhang Su meant by that day. After organizing his words, he said, after receiving the letter from you, I organized a group of people to quietly stay near the Pig's Head bar. After Winky reported that day, we immediately entered Hogwarts through the secret passage of the Pig's Head pub. There were a lot of Death Eaters in the castle at the time, and they blocked all the roads leading to the principal's office. Almost all the students in the school organized themselves, and they tried to open the way to the principal's office. Not long after, people from the Order of the Phoenix also came, so I asked the professors to lead the students to continue to put pressure on the Death Eaters, and I led a few Aurors and a few members of the Order of the Phoenix led by Moody to form a commando team. Under the leadership of Filch, he bypassed a blockade of the Death Eaters through a secret passage, and then confronted a group of Death Eaters at the door of the principal's office. Just as we were about to break through their obstruction, several Death Eaters including Snape and Draco Malfoy rushed out of the principal's office. Speaking of this, Percy looked down at the coffee in front of him and was silent for a long time. After about 5 minutes, he continued, they were calling Dumbledore dead. At that time, we were all stunned. We couldn't stop them for a while and let them run away. Then the Death Eaters in the castle withdrew and left Hogwarts through the gate, but they were ambushed as soon as they stepped out of the gate. Later we found Dumbledore's body under the tower of the headmaster's office. He fell out of the window of the office. At the same time, there was Harry who was petrified under the invisibility cloak. Having said this, both Zhang Su and Percy were silent for a long time. Percy used a spell to heat up the cold coffee in his cup and drank it all in one gulp. Then he asked, do you know where the Death Eaters entered Hogwarts Castle? Zhang Su sat down on the chair and said, the secret room. You know. Percy opened his eyes wide and looked at Zhang Su. I heard from Harry that he went to check the secret room with you. The implication of Percy's words is self-evident. Zhang Su can only shake his head with a wry smile. Then Percy suddenly remembered something and said, oh, Scarlet must have told you. I knew it before that, Zhang Su said in a low voice. He knew it too. Percy was stunned, and then asked in an incredulous tone, what do you mean? Why do you think Harry and I failed to find that cabinet in the Chamber of Secrets? Zhang Su said, that's because he didn't want us to find it. At this moment, Percy was stunned as if under a petrification spell, and it took a long time before he managed to say, why? I also want to know this question. Zhang Su replied helplessly, I persuaded him several times after I found out the clue, but he was very stubborn in this regard. You also know later, I was driven away. After another moment of silence, Percy heated his refill of coffee with a spell for the second time and said, there are quite a few small things in the passageway in front of the secret room that you left behind. We found them later when we checked the secret room. It's just that they're all broken. I think that's what Dumbledore did, Zhang Su said, otherwise the road would be covered with Death Eater corpses. After that, neither of them had the nature to continue the conversation. Just when Zhang Su was about to leave, Percy suddenly asked, what is the use of the relic Dumbledore left you? The Ministry of Magic inspected it for a month and found that it was just a few ordinary cheating dice. What does 233 mean? The Ministry of Magic have struggled to figure out what it means. It's literally. After Zhang Su finished speaking, he took his leave after drinking the coffee in his cup and left, leaving Percy to wait for the waiter to ask him to pay the bill. Chapter 436 The Burrow Visitor. It was another fine day today, with bright sunshine bringing uncomfortably warm temperatures to the village of Outerisan Catchpole and the surrounding meadows, forests and mountains. The Burrow, which sits among the knolls and groves to the south of the village, is busy right now. At this time, Mrs. Weasley was like a commander on the battlefield, holding a stack of parchment full of work to be completed, directing a group of people around. Whenever someone completes a task, she will be asked to return to life, and then receive a new task. Your next task, let me see. Weasley flipped through the task list belonging to Ron and said, come down for lunch after you clean the roof. Remember, you have to ride a broom up. Okay. Ron returned to his room after receiving the task, then flew out of the window on his own broom, and then kept casting a cleaning spell on the roof of the burrow. Are Fred and George still in the house? Mrs. Weasley called into the house from the door. They're out now, shouted Ginny, who was working in the kitchen. When Mrs. Weasley heard it, she clicked on the twins' task list after welcoming guests. During this period of time, Mrs. Weasley devoted herself to the preparations for the wedding of her two sons with great passion. Two sons were married at the same time, and the two brides were from two different countries, which made the preparations for the wedding difficult. First of all, the placement of the mother's family has become a very troublesome issue. Although the burrow has been renovated and expanded a while ago, it still cannot meet the needs of the guests. Especially on Charlie's side, he invited all the members and several leaders of the China Quidditch national team he coached, and Donghia invited a group of relatives from Russia. Fortunately, the two of them said that they had solved the accommodation problem of these people, otherwise Mrs. Weasley would have to go crazy. The second is the recipe for the wedding banquet. After the twin brothers asked Hermione to send an email to Zhang, when Zhang replied to the email, this problem was no longer a problem, and then they'll hire Dobby and Winky, and Black will get Creature to help. Just as Mrs. Weasley was counting the remaining tasks for the day, there was a loud bang not far from the burrow. A building was 5 stories high. The main body was made of black silk, supplemented by silver decorations. The tent appeared on the grass and Black began waving his wand to secure the tent. This is the tent that the Wheel Eyes borrowed from Blake de Houseville's wife, Clemence Posey, and her relatives from France. On the other side of the burrow, another huge tent was reserved. It was finally time for lunch, and people who had been busy all morning sat at the huge dining table, waiting for lunch to start. At the end of the dining table was a large stack of books, which Harry's trio were looking through when they found time, and the other people at the dining table are no longer surprised. They are busy with their own affairs. Mrs. Weasley and Ginny put today's lunch on the table, and then said to the three of them, "It's time to eat. If you want to know what the numbers mean, just ask him if the next one comes. Yet the earlier we know what it means, the earlier we can prepare." Harry said after closing the book, "I don't think Dumbledore will send something meaningless. An NBSP, then you can take a break today, and there is no need to fight for such a little time." Mrs. Weasley said while distributing lunch to everyone. Fred and George went to meet Zhang and they haven't come back yet? Going to miss lunch. At this moment, there was a sound of opening the door from the other side, and then the voice of Fred or George. "It seems that we are just in time for lunch." After hearing the voice, Tanya stood up excitedly, then ran towards the hall, and almost tripped over a book on the floor as she passed Hermione. When Tanya ran to the hall, she saw the twins leading Fleur, Gabriel and Scarlet into the room. "Delacour," Tanya shouted excitedly, and greeted her with open arms. When Fu Rong saw her best friend who had lived in the same dormitory for 7 years come to welcome her, she also opened her hands to give her a hug. However, Dong Niaya turned around and bypassed Fu Rong, and picked up Gabriel who was behind Fu Rong. "First write down this account in a small black notebook," Fu Rong thought. After a while of squabbling and greetings, everyone came to the restaurant. "Welcome, Professor Scarlet, and the two Miss Delacours." Mrs. Weasley said happily, "You are hungry, everyone, come over for lunch." Scarlet, who was carrying a backpack that was so huge that Gabriel could fit it in, put the backpack by the door of the restaurant, and then sat down with Gabriel, ignoring the expectant eyes of someone in the restaurant. Just after the three guests thanked Mrs. Weasley for the hospitality, The others suddenly found that they were missing one of them. Miss Delacour, what about Zhang? Why didn't he come? Harry asked Fleur. Just treat him as a husky, and he will be gone as soon as he comes to Europe. Fu Rong replied a little depressed. Harry said with some disappointment, I have something to pass on to him, and I still have some questions to ask him. Don't worry, Fu Rong said, he will come back when he is crazy enough outside. Harry realized that something was wrong with the atmosphere, so he stopped talking and began to concentrate on dealing with the bacon in front of him. Seeing this, the others also avoided the landmine while chatting. After lunch, Scarlet picked up the extra-large backpack she brought, and went outside the burrow with Tanya, Fleur, Gabriel and others. On the prepared space outside the burrow, Scarlet put her backpack in the center of the space, and then said to Gabriel who was standing next to her, next is your performance. When she was on the road, she was stalked by Gabriel, so she gave Gabriel the opportunity to open the backpack. Gabriel walked up to the backpack in high spirits, waved the small hand holding the wand a few times, and then tapped the backpack with the wand. The next moment, the backpack suddenly opened by itself, and then continued to unfold and become bigger, which scared Gabriel back again and again. 1 minute later, a red tent appeared on the grass. Tanya hugged Scarlet beside her, and said happily to her, Thank you, Aunt Scarlet. Believe it or not, I'm putting it away right now. Hey chapter 437. In front of the number 233 vault on the ground floor of Gringotts, today's manager on duty is standing guard outside with a few security guards, while Zhang Su is doing an inventory in the vault where he keeps his private money. When Voldemort returned from the cauldron 2 years ago, Zhang Su got a lot of extra money from a group of Death Eaters, and later gave Harry Potter half of the money for selling his blood. Method after Zhang Su took Hufflepuff's gold cup away, he never came back to this vault, so he didn't know exactly how much money and things were stored there. Especially later he used the gold coins in this vault as a favor and allowed Dumbledore to borrow the money here as the operating expenses of the Order of the Phoenix, as long as Loudang put the IOU in the vault. Still believable. So only Zhang Su and Dumbledore knew to open this vault. When Zhang Su heard Harry say that the dice Dumbledore left for him rolled only the numbers 2 and 3, he could be sure that Dumbledore here is what Leto left for himself. It's just that the vault, which has never been taken care of, is really messy. I don't know what Dumbledore put here, so Zhang Su simply asked a goblin from Gringotts to help with statistics. Several goblins in Gringotts who specialize in inventory work are busy in the vault at the moment. They are specially trained employees of Gringotts. Under the restraint of magic, they are not afraid of revealing the secrets in the client's vault. The first to complete the work was the goblin who was in charge of counting the stack of IOUs written by Dumbledore. He listed the time, loan amount, notes and total of the IOUs written by Dumbledore over the years on a piece of parchment. Zhang Su looked at Dumbledore's loan summary table calculated by the goblin, and found that Loudang had been borrowing money since 1996. He didn't borrow much at the beginning, but as time went by, the amount of each loan was getting higher and higher. In the end, the total amount of loans had reached a very high number. If Zhang Su wanted to ask Loudang to pay back the money, Loudang probably had to go to a pawn shop first. Did he not plan to pay it back from the beginning, or did he think that I would not ask him to pay it back? Zhang Su looked at the list and said to himself, and this matter must not be known to the outside world. Zhang Su can be sure that if this matter gets out, the news of a certain reporter the next day must be that he asked Voldemort to help Dumbledore collect debts, and Dumbledore yelled at the Death Eaters, I borrowed the money on my own merits, why do you have to pay it back, if you want money, or if you want a life, and then his life is gone. After reading the loan summary form, Zhang Su turned over the next page. At this time, he unexpectedly found that there were only 2 lines on this page. The first line was repayment summary form, and the second line was Dumbledore's physical loan records of loan repayments. Go and get this thing. Zhang Su pointed to the repayment record and said to the fairy next to him. After the goblin left, Zhang Su began to study this weird repayment record. He found the undated repayment note from the bottom of a stack of IOUs. The handwriting on it was Dumbledore's. That's right. Old Deng paid 233 galleons for a box to repay the money. However, the repayment time stated on the repayment summary form was July. Zhang Su calculated that the day happened to be the night of Loudang's resurrection. When the goblin came back with a half-meter-long black wooden box, Zhang Su asked him, how do you know the date? The magic of the Gringotts vault will mark the storage time of each item that enters the vault, and only the goblin can see it. The goblin said. Zhang Su nodded, then hurriedly walked out of the vault with a black box, and asked the manager on duty who was guarding the door outside, who stored this box. The manager on duty glanced at the box in Zhang Su's hand, then took out a notebook, searched it for a while and said, "The only one who entered the vault that day was the house elf of Hogwarts, and it has the credentials to enter the vault." Thank you," Zhang Su said disappointedly. After returning to the vault, Zhang Su suddenly lost interest. After the goblins counted all the items and gold coins in the vault, he let the goblins go out first, and then forced himself to look for Dumbledore in the vault down the trail. After carefully flipping through the vault 3 times, Zhang Su had to be sure that the only thing left to him by Dumbledore was the black wooden box besides the stack of IOUs. It was a plain black wooden box, tightly bound by a thin rope. Magic was cast on the rope, and Zhang Su tried several methods agreed with Dumbledore before untying it. After opening the box, Zhang Su was stunned. In addition to Shuang Fei's mechanical mouse without the mouse cable, there is also a magic wand inside. The slightly enchanted mouse was his token of entry to the vault for Dumbledore, and apparently Dumbledore returned it. What was even more terrible was the magic wand on the side. If Zhang Su read it correctly, this wand was the legendary Elder Wand that Dumbledore had been using all the time. Zhang Su looked at this one that he wanted to borrow several times to play with, but Dumbledore never agreed to it, and couldn't understand what old Deng was thinking. Zhang Su checked the box again. There was no letter, note or other information in it, and there was no writing left on the box. He even opened the mouse, but found nothing. Looking at the Elder Wand in his hand, Zhang Su felt that it was like a roasted sweet potato just taken out of the fire. Although it was very fragrant, it was also very hot. Having said that, this guy should be Lao Deng's funeral object, Zhang Su thought. Could it be that Lao Deng learned from his old friend that Voldemort was looking for the Elder Wand, so he gave the Elder Wand to himself, if Voldemort heard the news again? Zhang Su didn't want to think about it anymore. If this was the case, unless he honestly handed over the Elder Wand, Voldemort would definitely attack him, even if his 2 children were in his hands. People like Voldemort who have not experienced family warmth are more likely to choose a career between career and family. Zhang Su asked himself, if Voldemort threatened him with his life, or even the lives of his relatives and friends, would he hand over the Elder Wand? Of course it will, Zhang Su thought, not to mention the Elder Wand. Even if Voldemort asked him to hand over Harry Potter, he would tie a bomb on Harry with tears in his eyes, and then pack Harry up. Okay, send it over. Chapter 438 Tomb Sweeping. After leaving the vault, Zhang Su came to the 3 broomsticks and hogsmeade through the fireplace of Gringotts. The business in the bar was very bad. There was only one customer who was already very drunk snoring on the table, and the proprietress was sitting behind the bar wiping glasses bored. When Zhang Su walked past a table, he found that the person who had drunk too much was the famous Western reporter Rita Skeeter. He paused for a moment, realizing that it was a bit late, so he ignored her and walked out of the bar. On the street outside, apart from the Aurors who were patrolling, there were only 1 or 2 people walking around. The doors and windows of the houses on both sides of the road are tightly closed, and thick curtains block the windows tightly. The situation here is similar to that of Diagon Alley. The economy is depressed, and the residents go out as little as possible. Just as he was about to leave Hogsmeade, a familiar figure walked out of the side road. Professor McGonagall, who is on crutches, came to collect the rent today. She didn't expect to meet Zhang Su here. "Are you back?" Professor McGonagall asked. "I'm back, Professor," Zhang Su replied. "Just come back." Professor McGonagall nodded, then turned and walked towards Hogwarts. Zhang Su quickened his pace and followed. The evening wind blows Hogwarts and the breeze blows the water. There are no green trees to embellish the setting sun, just a piece of blue lake, standing on the grass in front of the tomb, dreaming over and over again. There are also 2.5 pairs of footprints on the small road at dusk. It was Meg standing quietly with me leaning on a staff, stepping on the dust to mourn the old principal who drove west. Zhang Su followed Professor McGonagall to Dumbledore's tomb, and then stood quietly until the sunset fell behind the distant mountains. At some point, Professor McGonagall left by himself, leaving Zhang Su alone. After it was completely dark that day, a little light appeared in the woodland by the lake. A group of fireflies flew out from the forbidden forest and danced around the white tomb. It's just that the smell from the 3 incense sticks and 2 candles burning in front of the tomb and the smell of alcohol on the ground kept the fireflies away from the front of the tombstone. "He's still dead." A figure suddenly appeared beside Zhang Su. "Yes. Zhang Su said after sighing. He told me 52 years ago that unless he died, I couldn't leave Nurmengard for half a step. Grindelwald whispered. Your Excellency. Zhang Su's words just started, but Grindelwald interrupted him. In the future, there will be no more gentlemen. There is only an old man who misses his friends every day, every hour, every moment. Grindelwald said, I live in the wooden house in the front forest now. And? Zhang Su nodded. Then both of them fell silent, quietly looking at the faint yellow-green tomb reflected by the fluorescent light from the fireflies. After a while, Zhang Su said, he gave me the Elder Wand. It doesn't matter. Grindelwald shook his head and said, it's up to you. Zhang Su nodded again. It seems that the first generation of the Dark Lord is disheartened and no longer cares about the torrential flood outside. If one day I die, please take me back to Nurmengard. Grindelwald said lightly and without emotion. Zhang Su was slightly taken aback. He thought that the other party planned to be neighbors or even live with Laodang in the future. This request was not a big problem. Zhang Su agreed after a little thought. Delete my body already rotten. It's up to you to avenge Albus. After Grindelwald finished speaking, he pressed one hand on the celestial cap of Zhang Su, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, and the century-old pure yang magic power poured directly into Zhang Su's ancestral orifice from his hand through the Behu acupoint. After a stick of incense, Grindelwald's trembling right hand left the top of Zhang Su's head, and his originally stalwart body became stooped at this moment. He staggered to Dumbledore's tomb, sat down slowly next to the tombstone, and closed his eyes. A generation of heroes has fallen. The next moment, Zhang Su clashed with Grindelwald's century-old pure yang magic power because of his mixed yin and yang magic power, and it exploded. Delete the things that should be explained were explained, and the two fell into silence again. Just when Zhang Su was about to say goodbye and leave, a huge figure came here. Seeing that it was Hagrid, Zhang Su was not interested in talking to him, so he turned and left. Unexpectedly, Hagrid took a step across and stopped in front of Zhang Su. You knew beforehand? Hagrid suddenly shouted at Zhang Su. And Zhang Su immediately exploded. You are sick? When did you have the illusion that you can yell at me? From 2 generations of Dark Lords to the Prime Minister's private secretary, who didn't talk and laugh with me in a friendly voice? Seeing that Zhang Su didn't speak, Hagrid shouted at him louder. Why didn't you stop him and watch him die? Get out of the way. Zhang Su said to Hagrid coldly. Anyone with a brain who knew afterward knew that Zhang Su had done his best on this matter. Professor McGonagall didn't say anything along the way just now, but just sighed. If Hagrid's attitude towards him was above the passing line, Zhang Su didn't mind explaining it to him again. However, Hagrid's performance made the already sad Zhang Su's irritable heart even more fueled. Although Zhang Su could understand Hagrid's respect for Dumbledore, this was not the reason why he could be so unreasonable to himself. Say it again. Get out of the way. Zhang Su's tone became even colder. Just when the two people who were born at odds were about to fight, another cold deal sounded behind Hagrid. If I were you, I would shut up obediently and make way for Mr. Zhang. Can't you see that Mr. Zhang can defeat you with one hand? Big fool. After hearing this voice, Hagrid's body stiffened immediately. He turned his head and saw a living two-hole socket standing not far behind him at some point. It's you, Hagrid said with difficulty. Shouldn't be happy to see old schoolmates, said Voldemort. The next moment, just when Hagrid was about to raise the umbrella in his hand, a huge force knocked him into the air, and he landed with a boom and rolled on the ground more than a dozen times. Seeing that the Avada Kedavra curse he shot at Hagrid interrupted a big tree in the Forbidden Forest in the distance, Voldemort looked at Zhang Su dissatisfied. I have no intention of preventing your old classmates from greeting you with a killing curse, Zhang Su said. However, even though I didn't take his class, if he died in front of me like this, it would still cause me a lot of trouble. Voldemort looked at Zhang Su, a red light flashed in his eyes. In the next second, Zhang Su's eyes also flashed with colorful light. It's just a little trick to play cool, but it's worth it to frighten Voldemort into a frown. It was like a reenactment of the scene in the top room of Nurmengard a few months ago. Voldemort, who was blocked from killing, and Zhang Su, who entered the first level of combat readiness as soon as he entered the UK, confronted each other, full of murderous intent. Grindelwald took a few steps back and continued to eat melons and watch the show. At this moment, everything that happened in the world has nothing to do with him. You're back. Yes, I'm back. You shouldn't have come back. But I'm back. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 439. Another deal with the evil forces. In the quiet summer, the sky is full of stars, and the moonlight is pouring down like flowing water. No one saw how Voldemort got in, but he seemed to be standing under the moonlight. Zangsu and Voldemort faced each other on the grass in front of Dumbledore's tomb, paying close attention to each other's every move. A cool wind blew from the Forbidden Forest, and there were no fallen leaves with the wind, and the fireflies flying around disappeared. Hagrid, who was beaten to the edge of the Forbidden Forest, also disappeared. It seemed that Voldemort just appeared on the grass casually, and every part of his body seemed to be flawed. Zangsu's magic seemed to be able to call on him casually. However, too many flaws turned into no flaws. Zangsu could feel that as soon as he made a move, Voldemort would be summoned to attack violently like a super typhoon Durian. So he responded to all changes with the same, "The enemy didn't move, I didn't move," dragging the battle into a bladder game. At this time, the two smiling people who are weak first lose first. However, for Voldemort, the bladder bureau did not exist. He just took a moment to scout the surroundings to see if there was an ambush. So Voldemort moved first. Voldemort raised his right hand holding the wand with lightning speed, and a red curse shot straight at Zangsu from the top of the wand in his hand. At this time, Voldemort, Zangsu, and Dumbledore's tomb just formed a three-point line. If Zangsu avoided the curse, then the curse cast by Voldemort would hit Dumbledore's tomb. Voldemort asked Zangsu a question: should he take the blow hard, or dodge it by himself, and then cause Dumbledore's tomb to be destroyed? Zangsu made his choice without hesitation. He narrowly dodged the blow with a sidestep, and then released a big fireball that radiated dazzling light and hit Voldemort. Tezu taught us, if people lose land, all people and land will survive. If land is lost, people will lose all land. Zangsu would not sacrifice himself to protect the grave out of respect for Dumbledore. So Voldemort's little idea fell through. A boom came from behind Zangsu. Although he didn't turn his head to look, he could tell from the position of the explosion that something was blocking Voldemort's spell in front of Dumbledore's tomb. Although Grindelwald is very old and was almost killed by Voldemort before, when Dumbledore's grave is threatened, he will let people know that the old dog still has a few teeth. The dazzling fireball blocked Voldemort's sight. He waved his wand hurriedly, and a wall of earth rose in front of him, blocking the big fireball from Zangsu. There was an unexpected explosion, like a fireball that was strong on the outside and dry on the inside dissipated after a soap bubble cracked. Voldemort's heart moved, and his whole body sprang back like a snake. In the next second, a huge flaming palm fell from the sky and hit the spot where Voldemort was standing just now. The brief confrontation was over, and after the dust settled, Voldemort focused his attention on Zangsu's right hand. Grindelwald on the side also noticed the wand used by Zangsu tonight, with several expressions on his face, then sighed deeply, and finally stood by Dumbledore's tombstone and looked at the two people in front of him quietly. Zangsu secretly sighed. Voldemort stopped after being attracted by the Elder Wand, then there was something to talk about next. He didn't mind handing over the Elder Wand to Voldemort that day. Voldemort announced the task of finding the Elder Wand in front of Grindelwald, and Dumbledore would naturally get news from Grindelwald afterwards, and Dumbledore still handed the wand to himself knowingly, which means that he doesn't mind, and may even be happy to see the Elder Wand finally fall into Voldemort's hands. And Zangsu naturally knew that the Elder Wand was a big pit for Voldemort, and he didn't mind Voldemort jumping into this pit with a smile. And this is a good time to let Voldemort know that the Elder Wand is in his hands. It was normal for Voldemort to use his best weapon against him. The Elder Wand, said Voldemort with a touch of excitement. When he played against Zangsu he felt a little tricky, which surprised him, but he was relieved when he saw the magic wand in Zangsu's hand. Voldemort also looked at Grindelwald, and after seeing the expression on his face and the final sigh, he confirmed that Zangsu was holding the wand he needed. At this time, Voldemort's heart became hot. A student who has not yet graduated can compete with him with the Elder Wand. If the Elder Wand is in his hand, then he is invincible. Make a condition, Mr. Zhang. Voldemort said to Zangsu. This is a relic given to me by Dumbledore. Zangsu replied. I think my terms will satisfy you. Voldemort began to bargain with Zangsu. Dumbledore is an elder whom I respect very much. This one entrusts me with deep thoughts of him. Zangsu withdrew his hand and said affectionately at the old wand in his hand, I'll make a condition that you can't refuse. Voldemort immediately set the condition to the top, and if Zhang Su didn't agree, he could only do it. If you agree to my 2 conditions, then I can lend you the Elder Wand for free until the end of the life of either of you and me, and the Elder Wand will belong to whoever is still alive. Voldemort thought for a while, then nodded and said, please. Zhang Su glanced back at Dumbledore's tomb and said, death is nothing. You must ensure that no one, creature or object disturbs Dumbledore's long sleep. Voldemort raised his eyebrowless brow, then nodded and said, I can promise that. Then Zhang Su continued, I know you will control the Ministry of Magic sooner or later, so when you control the Ministry of Magic, help me manipulate a law set to return a stolen item to its original owner, and then let the owner of that item must be sold to me for 100 galleons. Voldemort laughed, and he suddenly realized that the young man opposite him who dared to talk and laugh with him was quite suitable to take over his class. Grindelwald, who was eating melons, was thinking about why this guy wasn't fired by Dumbledore. Well, I promise you both of these conditions, Voldemort said. Then let's make an unbreakable oath. Zhang Su stretched out his right hand and said. Voldemort narrowed his eyes and looked at Zhang Su, then walked towards Zhang Su. Because there is a clause to protect Dumbledore's tomb, Grindelwald agreed to Zhang Su's request to use the Elder Wand as a witness for this oath full of loopholes without thinking. Voldemort immediately saw the loopholes in Zhang Su's conditions. Zhang Su did not ask himself to guarantee his safety, so as long as he tried his best to replace Zhang Su's life with the lives of his own children after getting the Elder Wand, then this oath will naturally disintegrate. Grindelwald even wondered if he would help Zhang Su block the curse in exchange for Dumbledore's peaceful sleep if Voldemort turned his face on the spot. When the people of the Order of the Phoenix arrived after receiving Hagrid's alarm, they saw the establishment of the unbreakable oath. That this lineup can be described as unprecedented. Voldemort, who took over the Elder Wand from Grindelwald, had the idea of killing Zhang Su immediately, but at the same time as this idea came up, he felt that something extremely dangerous was about to happen. So Voldemort put away his thoughts, and took off on the spot and left Hogwarts regardless of the members of the Order of the Phoenix who entered the fighting state behind him. Zhang Su stretched out his left hand that was tucked inside his sleeve, and moved the safety on the fuse with his thumb to the safe position, and then put the big thing away. If Voldemort wanted to make a move just now, he would have let go while activating the insole door key, and at the same time the fuse was activated. Zhang Su was too lazy to say anything to the members of the Order of the Phoenix, and after saying hello to Grindelwald, he activated the insole door key and left. Many years later, Zhang Su's 2 daughters who were studying at Hogwarts read this period of history from Hogwarts, a school history, and they all asked him when they returned home during the holidays, was he afraid that Voldemort would be under him? Instantly turned. When Zhang Su answered this question to his daughter, he always gestured with his left hand and replied, if Voldemort had dared to turn his face immediately, he would have known what it was like to have a fist-sized C4 studded with steel balls exploding beside him. Chapter 440 Mr. Huifang has already died in battle. Okay, I hit it. Zhang Su, who was holding the phone, leaned back and sat down on the chair after speaking, finally heaving a sigh of relief. In an office of the embassy, several other staff members on duty at night congratulated Zhang Su after hearing this. Because Zhang Su looks pretty good, and his mouth is sweet every time he comes to handle business, the staff in the embassy have a good impression of him. Xiao Zhang, what major will you study in the future? Asked an aunt who was middle-aged but still charming. Computer science and technology. Zhang Su replied. Why did you choose this major? The aunt asked in surprise. She knew Zhang Su's identity. Because this major will make money in the future. Zhang Su replied naturally. That's a good relationship. The aunt said, my daughter will also take the college entrance examination next year. Let's see if she can also pass this major. After chatting with everyone for a while, Zhang Su said goodbye and left. After he came back from Hogwarts, he saw that the time was almost up, so he came to the duty room to make a phone call back to China to check the admission status of the college entrance examination. The result is okay, everything is under control. Now that he has been accepted, he can't just leave the stall in the UK and go back to China to study. Therefore, the necessary procedures for suspension of school should be done according to the rules. It's not too late for this kind of matter. If the formalities are delayed because of the British affairs, he can only walk into the examination room again next year with tears in his eyes. After calling home to announce the good news, he called Fleur again and told her that he would go back to the borough tomorrow afternoon. Next, Zhang Su took a taxi and found a hotel at random and opened a room. In the room, he wrote down the application for a 1-year leave of absence from school. Communicate. After all the work was done, the domestic side was just about to get off work at noon, and it was almost 4 o'clock in the morning on the British side. Next, I only need to sleep and send back the application for suspension of school tomorrow, and the procedure will be completed. However, when Zhang Su took a shower and was about to fall asleep, his cell phone rang. Seeing the caller number, Zhang Su frowned. It was from the company. After Zhang Su opened the internet communication software company many years ago, in addition to the financial aspects being managed by his own family, the technology, operation and R&D were all managed by hired and reliable people. He only needed to point out a direction for development, since now is the time to focus on grabbing market share with software such as N. There are not many places where he can be used, so apart from the quarterly reports and the annual company meeting when I return to China during the summer vacation, I rarely get in touch with him for anything in the company, and I can't get in touch even if I want to. Zhang Su picked up the phone, pressed the answer button and said to the other end of the phone, "Old ma, what's the matter?" "I'm sorry, boss, to disturb your sleep." The horse on the other end of the phone greeted nervously. For the company's extremely young behind-the-scenes boss, Ma Yanfei admires it very much. An unexpected encounter in the summer of that year, the two hit it off on many issues of internet services, and the young boss's foresight in internet discovery convinced him even more. It didn't take long before Ma Yan became the second in command and the fourth shareholder in charge of daily affairs of a small company opened by boss Zhang under his father's name. Some of Ma Yu's relatives once urged him to simply take the company into his own hands while that brat was out of the country. As a result, those relatives were slapped with heat by the horse. Boss Zhang is the largest shareholder, and the third shareholder is the same young female secretary next to boss Zhang, but the second shareholder is the state, and the person in boss Zhang's office, the signature of the inscription, make a lot of money, and silence is enough to make people with bad intentions die. "Boss, the task you arranged before going abroad has come to fruition," Ma Yu reported. Zhang Su was surprised and said, "There is really a result. How is the situation?" Ma Yu replied, "As you expected, our background monitoring system found many European users and chat groups who used the keywords you provided in chat." Now Zhang Su really wants to flip the table. The painting style of this world seems to have completely collapsed. Then Zhang Su said, "You sort out and save the relevant information, and I will let the country's intelligence department and the company connect as soon as possible. And the water involved in this matter is too deep. You must do a good job of keeping it secret. Actions like Project Prism are every normal. All major countries will do it but will not say it." Boss Zhang asked the background monitoring system that was just put into use this year to try to pay attention to keywords such as Hogwarts, Death Eater and Dark Lord, and it turned out to be effective. Think about how the Death Eaters no longer use owls to send messages, but sit in front of the computer and snap at the keyboard. How strange this style of painting looks. After discussing some precautions with Ma Yan, Zhang Su hung up the phone, and then dialed another mobile phone number. The phone on the other side answered the phone after the bell rang for about a minute. "Why are you calling here in the middle of the night without sleeping?" Mr. Zhao said on the other end of the phone. "Brother, think about the Death Eaters sitting in front of the computer and using QQ to chat. What kind of picture would that be?" Zhang Su said. The other side was quiet for half a minute, and then said, "No way, your fake QQ company really found out. You'll know if you do the math." Zhang Su said. "Now I sell 100 million yuan at a time. If you are so rich, you don't need to discount it." Zhao Lao said. Dao, who told an old man that he would live to be 100 years old, but the old man was so happy that he died of cerebral hemorrhage due to excessive excitement. Zhang Su said dismantlingly. "Don't leave after school, see you on the rooftop. If you have the ability, come to the roof of Hogwarts." After the two guys who lived for 2 centuries rounded up and rounded off each other for a round, Mr. Zhao said to Zhang Su, "Isn't it dangerous over there now, or you can just come back after drinking the wedding wine?" Zhang Su said, "Forget it, let's do things from beginning to end." "Okay then." Elder Zhao replied, "Now it's not easy for us to interfere in the internal affairs of the UK, so you should be careful. Don't worry about this, I have a lot of money waiting for me to go back to spend." Zhang Su replied, "But I have something to trouble you. I am afraid that my wife will sneak back when she returns to China, so you help me pay attention. Let the customs not allow her to leave the country." "Which daughter-in-law of yours?" asked the other side. After the two teased for another round, Zhang Su hung up the phone. The news has already arrived. Mr. Zhao will notify the European part of the intelligence department to go to the company to connect. After the phone call, it was already dark outside the window. After such a toss, Zhang Su no longer felt sleepy, so he simply went out to eat something before talking. Zhang Su left the Cranley Hotel and walked south for more than 10 minutes before arriving at the Vinquiter restaurant. Vinquiter means the number 24 in French. This is a restaurant with a 24-hour turnover. Until now, Zhang Su was still slow to respond to the numbers in French, and at this point, Fu Rong had given up treatment for him. At this point in time, there were very few customers in the restaurant. Only a lady about 30 years old brought a young man about the same age as Zhang Su to eat inside. Now there are more than 10 kinds of dishes to choose from in the restaurant, which makes Zhang Su very happy. He just solved yesterday's dinner simply. He couldn't sleep just now because he was hungry. Zhang Su ordered smoked salmon, deliciously fried bacon and sausage, mushrooms with sauce, seasonal fruit salad, lightly burnt toast, and yogurt cereal. The waiter wanted to confirm to him several times whether he had finished eating so many things by himself. While Zhang Su was feasting, the voices of chatting from two other guests in the restaurant reached his ears. Unexpectedly, two words with an American accent floated into Zhang Su's ears: Ottery Sankachpol village and the borough. Zhang Su looked towards the two guests in surprise, and at this moment, the lady with short hair looked at Zhang Su with alert eyes. Zhang Su pretended to look at the beauty, and after a hasty glance, he continued to deal with the breakfast in front of him. But he could feel that the lady's peripheral vision had been paying attention to him. Zhang Su didn't care too much about this. The Weasley family can be described as a flourishing family. It's not surprising that there were a few relatives from the United States at the wedding. It's just that a breath from the lady's body at that moment made Zhang Su feel a little familiar. Chapter 441. The most important thing for professors to do before the semester starts every year. Zhang Su immersed himself in his breakfast, ignoring the two people at the other table who were probably relatives of the Weasley family. They are not their relatives, so there is no need to go to say hello. Going back to sleep after a full breakfast is a very happy thing, but Zhang Su, who had been up all night, had just caught up on more than 2 hours of sleep when he was woken up by the sound of knocking on the glass window. Depressed, Zhang Su opened the window and let in a messenger owl. He removed the scroll of parchment from the owl's leg and found it to be a letter bearing the wax seal of the Ministry of Magic. Opening the letter, the content was that the Ministry of Magic held a meeting at the Ministry of Magic at 3 o'clock this afternoon on the candidate for the next headmaster of Hogwarts. The Ministry of Magic invited Zhang Su to attend as one of the students' representatives. Annoyed at getting up, Zhang Su took a label in the room, wrote on it "Always support the principal, whoever becomes the principal supports whom," rolled up the note and tied it to the owl's leg, and finally threw the owl out of the room window. He is not interested in participating in this kind of wrangling meeting now. Before the school board can make a sound, the Ministry of Magic jumped out impatiently. However, an hour later, Zhang Su was awakened by another sound. This time it was the ringtone of the mobile phone. "Where are you?" Scarlet's voice came from the other end of the phone. "In a dream," Zhang Su replied in a daze. The person on the other end of the phone ignored Zhang Su's answer and continued, "The Ministry of Magic just sent me a letter. If the meeting was held for the principal candidate, I also received a sample letter." Zhang Su replied half asleep. "Then are you going?" Scarlet asked. "I turned it down. I'd better not get involved in such a thing," Zhang Su replied. "Then I won't go either," Scarlet said. Zhang Su went on to say, "I don't have to go, because it's fine if I don't go. But you have to go. You are not afraid that the new principal will wear shoes for you? 90% of the new headmaster is McGonagall. What am I afraid of?" Scarlet asked. "The distribution of teaching funds," Zhang Su said. He spent 3 years in the faculty office, and some infighting among the professors was still clear. Among the struggles among the Hogwarts faculty, the struggles between the deans over house points and the victory of Quidditch competitions are only a part, but the most competitive is the battle for teaching funds before the beginning of each academic year. Period. Although the financial situation of Hogwarts has been very good in the past few years, and the teaching funds have increased year by year, this does not mean that the professors will not compete. On the contrary, the increase in funding has made the competition among professors more intense. In the past, there was not much money, and everyone would consider others when they were fighting for it. However, teaching funds are now several times higher than before, and the professors basically think you can get a little more than before. That's not all you got to hear back then, just give me the rest. In the past, in this war of dividing up teaching funds, there were two people who did not have to worry about this matter. One was Professor Binns and the other was Professor Zhang. Professor Binns' History of Magic class is a purely theoretical class, and doesn't use any equipment or materials. The biggest application item on his funding application, which has not changed a single punctuation mark for many years, is to be in the rainy day when the light is not good. Candles for lighting in the classroom. So in the past, Loudang approved the first application every year. Professor Binns. As for the former Professor Zhang, everyone did not forget the well-digger. As long as the items on the application form he sent were not too excessive, everyone would recognize him. And the next competition will be fierce. Fertilizers and other things used in herbal medicine class have to spend money. In order to improve the level of students in potion class, more money has to be invested in purchasing more advanced raw materials. There must be no shortage of feed for the animals. If the tea used in the divination class does not come from Assam, how dare it appear in the historic Hogwarts? The funding is fixed, and if you want to get more for yourself, you have to let others get less. On the day when the professors discuss the allocation of funds, there are only two things to do: persuade the principal to approve their own application, and persuade the principal to reject other applications. According to someone from C, that time of year is really lively, especially last year. Snape, who used to get a large part of the funding when he taught potions, was liquidated by other professors after he changed to the Professor of Defense Against the Dark Arts. Snape used the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom as the basement with thick curtains drawn, so a lot of candles were needed for lighting. Now the other professors caught the question on Snape's grant application. Everyone has been taking classes in the classrooms upstairs for so many years, and they know how many candles they need for a school year. Why do you, Snape, apply for so many? Then the professors collectively slashed at Snape's application. In fact, Professor C, like Professor Binns, does not need a lot of funds for pure theory courses, but it will not be too good if someone gets hacked for unwarranted reasons. After being reminded by Zhang Su, C suddenly realized that he really had to take a trip. Where are you dreaming now? Scarlet asked. I'll go to your side first, the burrow can't stay anymore. Zhang Su reported the name, location and room number of the hotel he was staying in. Less than 5 minutes after hanging up the phone, Scarlet appeared in Zhang Su's room. Why can't we stay at the burrow? Zhang Su asked, yawning. Scarlet didn't answer, but asked, what did you do last night? Zhang Su was relieved. The members of the Order of the Phoenix in the burrow must be discussing his deal with Voldemort last night. The incident last night was really exciting for them, especially since it happened after Dumbledore's death. If the brain is big enough, this incident can at least draw 10,000 plus words. It was precisely because he needed to let them calm down before he could talk to them. That's why he didn't go to the burrow for so long. Zhang Su looked at Scarlet and asked, do you believe me? The only one I can trust now is you, Scarlet replied, so I hope you don't hide some things from me. Zhang Su sighed, and said, I will tell you what I can tell you now, and you will know the answer to some things that you can't tell now after 10 years. Then the two people in the room fell into silence. The book does not go into details. When it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Scarlet turned off the TV, glanced at Zhang Su who was still catching up on sleep under the covers, picked up the application for suspension of school written by Zhang Su last night in an envelope on the table, and left room. Chapter 442 Reorganization of Hogwarts Leadership Team Members. As night fell and the half-moon crept up, the Weasleys held a dinner party in the garden. Mrs. Weasley, who has been in a state of extreme excitement recently, prepared a large table of delicacies to welcome her cousin who came from the United States. Mrs. Weasley's aunt went to America when she was young, and later married and settled there. Mrs. Adams, who changed her surname after marriage, used to return to England every 1 or 2 years to visit her sister and 3 nephews, Gideon, Fabian and Molly. Later, Mrs. Adams brought her daughter to England as a guest. At that time, Molly and her cousin from the United States became very good playmates, and the last time the two of them met was when Bill was just born. Now Bill is a little confused. The aunt in front of him is comparing himself to Clemens when he was just born. The aunt who seems to be about the same age as him is not much younger than his mother. Don't the aunts nowadays look so old? Bill looked at one of the vacant seats left by the dining table and thought. On the other side of the table, the young people also chatted together. The young man Aunt Adams brought was one of her nephews in America, and Aunt Adams brought him to England for Bill and Charlie's wedding, in order to show him the country his grandfather had once lived in. The student of Ilvermorny School of Witchcraft and Wizardry is obviously very interested in Hogwarts, which often appears in his grandfather's mouth, and his grandfather's Professor Dumbledore. 8 out of 10 sentences refer to Hogwarts at Easter. Harry Potter, who had met once, asked various questions after mentioning Dumbledore several times. He found that Harry's expression was not good, and then he changed all the topics to the campus life at Hogwarts. And Harry and the others are also very interested in this new friend, and everything about Ilvermorny is also very novel to them. What interests them the most is this new friend named Rove Scamander, whose grandfather is Newt Scamander, the author of the textbook Where Are the Fantastic Beasts they used in the Protection of Magical Creatures class. Thanks to the influence of his family, Rove Scamander's research on magical beasts is somewhat beyond his peers. Well, normal research, not someone's kind of research. It didn't take long for the young people's topic to turn into magical animals in the American continent. When Rove talked about the Thunderbird in North America, Hermione suddenly remembered something and asked, "Can the tail feathers of the Thunderbird be used to make wands?" I remember the core of one of Zhang's wands is the Thunderbird's tail feather. That's right, wands that use Thunderbird tail feathers as the wand core are very powerful, but they are difficult to master, and such wands are suitable for performing transfiguration. Rove asked after answering Hermione's question, "George Miss Ranger, is the Zhang you're talking about last year one of the players on the Hogwarts Quidditch team, Zhang Su? Why didn't you see him in the 3-school Quidditch match held in Durmstrang this year? He has very important things to deal with, and he asked for leave before Easter." Harry said with some flickering words, "It is reasonable for him to come here this afternoon, but he didn't show up at night. By the way, that Miss Delacour over there is Zhang's fiancée." After speaking, Harry pointed to Fleur, who was chatting with middle-aged women at the other end of the table. The Order of the Phoenix only told Harry about Zhang Su and Voldemort's deal last night, and he didn't tell Ron and Hermione about it. However, Luo Fu cast his eyes on Gabriel, who was sulking because of Zhang Su's delay in showing up beside Furin, and said in surprise, "Why is Mr. Zhang's fiancée so young? Miss Delacour is not yet 12 years old. That little Miss Delacour is the younger sister of Zhang's fiancée," Harry said with a smile. At this moment, the gate of the Burrow's courtyard was opened, and 3 figures walked in. "Sorry, I'm late." Zhang Su greeted everyone around the dining table in the garden. "If it wasn't for the help of Professor Lu Ping, I really wouldn't be here." After politely hugging Mrs. Weasley, who came to welcome Zhang Su, Scarlet and Lupin came to the dining table and sat down. After rubbing Gabriel's face, Zhang Su just took the dinner presented by Mrs. Weasley, and at the same time said hello to Aunt Adams and Rove Scamander, who were introduced to him by Mrs. Weasley. The 2 American visitors that Zhang Su met while eating breakfast. Harry, who came to his senses at this time, asked, "Zhang, why did you call Lupin a professor just now?" "Professor Lu Ping, tell yourself," Zhang Su said to Lu Ping, who was receiving dinner. Lupin said with a smile on his face, "This afternoon, the new headmaster of Hogwarts decided to hire me to teach defense against the dark arts again." Everyone who had taken Lupin's class applauded. After the applause died down, Zhang Su added, "Professor Lupin is also the new dean of Gryffindor College. You Gryffindors should be careful." "So who is the new headmaster?" Hermione asked immediately. "It's me," Zhang Su replied. The dining table suddenly fell silent, and a group of people stared at Zhang Su dumbfounded. "Really?" Ron asked incredulously. "Of course it's fake." Zhang Su spread his hands and replied. Then Zhang Su was despised by a group of people. "So the new headmaster is Professor McGonagall?" Harry asked. "That's right." This time Zhang Su stopped being funny, and replied seriously, "It turns out that the Ministry of Magic planned to parachute a headmaster, but not long after the meeting, the school board of directors sent a message that all of them agreed that Professor McGonagall would be the next headmaster." A headmaster. After a lot of wrangling with owl letters, the Ministry of Magic had to agree with the decision of the school board. "So who is the new Transfiguration professor?" Hermione asked. "Could it be you again?" Zhang Su shook his head and said, "Don't ask me to correct your homework anymore." At this time, Lupin said to Hermione and the others, "The new professor of Transfiguration is serious." The next moment, classmate Harry jumped up happily. And Fred, who was sitting opposite Zhang Su, said quietly to Zhang Su, "You have to be careful, don't sneak out of the dormitory at night again." Red took a look. Feeling the pain of Gabriel's stretched hand pinching his weakness, Zhang Su cast a spell on Fred to grow donkey ears. Chapter 443. After everyone had finished their dinner amidst laughter, Harry approached Zhang Su. Zhang Su said to Harry, who came over, "I know you have a lot of questions to ask, so you have to make a list first to sort out the questions you want to ask, and I also have some important questions to ask you, so I will ask you later. Let's solve these problems one at a time." Okay. Harry, who had too many questions in his mind but didn't know how to ask them for a while, agreed. Then we'll see you in an hour. Originally, Zhang Su planned to talk to him tomorrow, but who knew that Harry was so impatient, it seemed that he couldn't sleep until some things were resolved. After sending Harry and the others away, Zhang Su was about to get up and go play with Gabriel in the tent when someone came to him again. "Would you like to take a walk around with me, Mr. Zhang?" Aunt Adams asked. Zhang Su looked at the other party suspiciously. Did he really become a master killer? Aunt Adams looked at Zhang Su with a kind expression. Okay. Zhang Su agreed, but I'm afraid we can't go too far, otherwise we won't be able to come back. Coming out of the garden of the burrow, Zhang Su and Aunt Adams chatted for 5 minutes while walking. Most of the topics were Aunt Adams asked Zhang Su about the campus life at Hogwarts. Just after the two of them were quite a distance away from the burrow, Aunt Adams suddenly asked, "Grindelwald is missing, do you have any clues?" Zhang Su looked again at this Aunt Adams from the United States with slightly surprised eyes, not knowing which side she was on. "Why do you ask me?" Zhang Su asked with a surprised expression. "Because you are the most likely person to go to Nuremberg in the near future." Aunt Adams said seriously, "You disappeared for one night when you were in Germany, and when you reappeared, you returned directly to China, and you disappeared is not far from Nuremberg. Would you believe it if I said that I spent a wonderful night with other climbers in their tents that night?" Zhang Su said. "I don't believe it," said Aunt Adams, shaking her head. "We didn't think you would do such a useless thing. Anyway, the situation is like this. As for whether you believe it or not, I believe it anyway." Zhang Su turned around and left after speaking. For those who dared to secretly send legitimacy to him, Zhang Su never gave him a good face, unless the opponent was unbeatable like Voldemort. Grindelwald is now guarding Dumbledore's tomb at Hogwarts. It is enough for people in the know to know such a thing tacitly, and there is no need to leak it out to cause extra problems. As for the identity of Aunt Adams, he has nothing to worry about. It is nothing more than the remnant of Grindelwald, and the aura of the Magical Congress of America. The former, Mr. Zhang, is a little thin in front of their boss, so there is no need to worry. The latter Zhang did not believe that the other party's hand could reach out to England to trouble him. Due to historical reasons, the wizarding world and the no-mage world in the United States are very antagonistic. Although the White House has been waving an olive branch to the Woolworth Building since the end of the Korean War, the Woolworth Building has always maintained an extremely cautious and conservative attitude towards cooperation with the White House. Although the White House has been preaching in the relevant circles that the situation is very good, if it weren't for Zhang Su and the former demon a few years ago. Law Minister Fudge asked about this during a chat, and the relevant domestic departments were almost fooled by the White House. As for whether Aunt Adams was pretended by someone, Zhang Su was not worried about it. He believes that during this period, Mrs. Weasley's vigilance will not be lowered, otherwise Voldemort will appear at the wedding in a few days to drink the wedding wine. When Zhang Su returned to the red tent brought by Scarlet, he met Mrs. Weasley in the living room on the first floor. He and she were discussing with Scarlet about Aunt Adams and Scamander. Make arrangements to live here. After Zhang Su sat down in the living room, he said to Mrs. Weasley, "It's fine for Scamander to live here. But I think it's not good for Aunt Adams to live here." Mrs. Weasley was taken aback for a moment. She did not expect Zhang Su to make such a decision. And Zhang Su continued, "I think it would be good for Aunt Adams to live with Professor Black. Maybe he can seize this opportunity." Well, when Zhang Su came back just now, he saw Black walking into the burrow. And Zhang Su, who was on the verge of doing something before, noticed that the other party didn't wear rings on both hands, so out of revenge, he started messing around. Mrs. Weasley obviously didn't expect that Zhang Su and her cousin had a conflict just now. What she thought of was that Zhang Su predicted what happened to the Lupin couple a few years ago, so she happily agreed to Zhang Su's suggestion, and when she left the tent, she was talking about how to introduce Blake to her cousin. As for Zhang Su being able to make decisions instead of Scarlet, Mrs. Weasley didn't find it strange. Facing the questioning gazes of Fury and Scarlet, Zhang Su shrugged and said, "I just brought together two people I hate, so please don't read too much into it." Didn't you have a pleasant time taking a walk after dinner just now? Scarlet asked. I see that you had a very happy conversation at the beginning. That's all an illusion. Zhang Su said, it's not that I can get along well with older women. She's here for Grindelwald. How did you get involved with Grindelwald? Fleur asked suspiciously. Growing up in continental Europe, she is quite sensitive to the name Grindelwald. Okay. I went to Germany to help Dumbledore deliver something to Grindelwald as a courier. Zhang Su said half-truthfully he didn't tell Furin who he was sending things to in Germany before. Grindelwald disappeared more than a month ago. Gabriel suddenly interjected. At that time, everyone in the Ministry of Magic was terrified, and Dad worked until late every day before returning. Then Fu Rong and Scarlet turned their eyes to Zhang Su again. You can think that Grindelwald is dead, Zhang Su said. When Zhang Su said so, they believed it. In the case of major events, Zhang Su's reputation is still good. By the way, where's my room tonight? Harry is coming to discuss something with me. Zhang Su finally asked Scarlet. After more than half an hour, Harry came to the tent to look for Zhang Su. In Zhang Su's room, a look of nostalgia appeared on Harry's face, because he used to spend his childhood in the storage room under the stairs of number 4 Privet Drive. Chapter 444. That night, the storage room under the stairs was not too cramped, and in Harry's words, the conditions here were much better than the storage room at number 4 Privet Drive. Seeing Harry's expression of pity, Zhang Su had the idea of just packing him up and sending him to Voldemort. This storage room was originally supposed to be used as a house-elf's room, and the tables, chairs, benches and beds inside were all small in size. However, after Zhang Su used magic to turn the tables and chairs into the size used by ordinary people, he had no other problems except that the room was a bit cramped. You plan to live here for a few days? Harry asked with a suppressed smile. Zhang Su took out 2 pensives and put them on the table, and said to Harry, life is always full of mutual compromises. In life, you need to know which things cannot be compromised and which things can be compromised. What things have to be compromised? Speak human. Harry was no longer at the age where he could be fooled by just a few words of truth. You will understand when your relationship with Ginny develops from dating to life, Zhang Su said to Harry angrily. Then Zhang Su sighed, pointed to the pensieve and said to Harry in a serious tone, it's very important that you show me what happened that night first. Also, do you have any questions to ask? Then Harry obediently took out a piece of parchment, which honestly listed a series of questions, ranging from asking Zhang Su why he didn't save Dumbledore to what happened to Malfoy's 2 children. Except for the matter about Malfoy, I can answer your other questions, Zhang Su said while taking out several crystal bottles and putting them on the table. Let's use the pensieve so that we don't miss any of them. Detail. For some questions, it is better for Harry to watch the live video, and it is difficult for Harry to believe some things without evidence. Okay then, Harry said helplessly, but I don't master the spell very well. It's okay, Zhang Su said with a smile, if I see something I shouldn't see, I will keep it secret for you. If you have an apple and I have an apple, exchange each other, we still only have 1 apple each? Yes, Zhang thought as he dove headfirst into the pensieve containing the memories Harry provided. Dividing line in Harry's memory, Zhang Su followed Harry, who was holding a medicine bottle, into the principal's office. The place where the sofa was originally placed in the principal's office has now been replaced by a recliner, on which the tall Dumbledore is lying. The robe on Loudang's body seemed to be covered on a bamboo pole, reflecting his thin body with only bones left. His hair and beard, which were originally healthy and shiny, became dry and forked, and his face became peaceful. His hair was as gray as his beard. Seeing Dumbledore's appearance made Zhang Su feel a little toothache. He knew that Loudang had always had health problems, but he didn't think that it would take less than 3 months for Loudang to turn into this dying-looking appearance. Professor, it's time to get up and take your medicine. Harry came to Dumbledore and said to him. After Dumbledore heard Harry's voice, his eyelids moved a few times, and then he opened his eyes with difficulty. Dumbledore's eyes, which were originally as bright as sapphires, became hollow and lifeless, and the eyes of salted fish looked more radiant than theirs vitality. Dumbledore opened his mouth slightly. Harry hurriedly helped him up, and then slowly fed Dumbledore the potion. Seeing Harry's skilled movements, this should not be the first time he gave Dumbledore medicine. After drinking the medicine, Dumbledore's face became rosy within a few breaths, and his eyes gradually became brighter. After drinking another glass of water that Harry fed, Dumbledore's spirit became better. Thank you, Harry, said Dumbledore, who had recovered a bit. "Thank Horace again for me, and thank him for the medicine." "I will," Harry said as he put down his glass. "It's just that your doses are getting shorter and shorter. Holidays, there will be a nasty guy to take care of me during the holidays, so you can enjoy your holidays," Dumbledore said vigorously. In the next 10 minutes, Dumbledore's complexion became better and better, and he didn't look like he was dying not long ago. And he had a big plate of dessert delivered by the house elf, and he started eating. Now Zhang Su finally knew the reason why Slytherin asked him to help find the native sheep. If it was a normal potion, Dumbledore would not be able to recover so quickly. Zhang Su, who had a premonition of what was going to happen next, was waiting in the office for someone to break in. Just as Harry was about to help Dumbledore clean up the dishes, a green light suddenly came in from the window. Dumbledore suddenly cast a petrification charm on Harry, which he stuffed into the wardrobe where he kept his robes in his office. It's just that before he could close the closet door, the door to the principal's office was opened roughly. He could only cast a spell on the wardrobe, and then walked to the back of the desk, panting, and sat down. Zhang Su saw the sweat on Dumbledore's forehead. It was obvious that the series of actions just now had exhausted all the energy he had accumulated with great difficulty. Zhang Su walked to the closet and found that Harry inside could see the situation in the office outside through the gap of the closed closet door. Soon, Xiaoma came to the principal's office. What happened next? When Malfoy sent Alsace and Gina to Zhang Su's hometown, student Xiaoma dictated it under Zhang's force suppression and Shenhu's threat. Now, after cross-verification with Harry's memory, Zhang Su has come to the conclusion that what the student Xiaoma said by the lake at that time is true. To put it simply, when Xiaoma came to the principal's office, he said to Lao Deng, "Don't move, I will kill you." "Old Deng, don't believe me, you are not such a person." "Pony, stop moving, I'm going to kill you." "Old Deng, I didn't move, I don't believe you will kill me." "Xiaoma, don't talk, I'm going to kill you." "Old Deng, Pony, let loose and let go." "Old Deng, this can't kill me." That's when Snape and the other Death Eaters appeared. Snape, Avada Kedavra. Dumbledore. 3 Chapter 445. Lao Deng is not afraid of death, but why is he afraid of death? At this time, Harry was also looking at the memory given by Zhang Su. The current memory was the content of the conversation between Zhang Su and Dumbledore after he asked Zhang Su to search the secret room. Ever since Dumbledore's death, Harry had felt guilty that the Death Eaters had come out of the Chamber of Secrets, and he believed that his own sloppy search had allowed the Death Eaters to enter Hogwarts. And some people in the Order of the Phoenix suspected that Zhang Su, who searched the secret room with Harry at that time, was a major suspect. At this moment, Harry was in the principal's office, listening carefully to the conversation between Zhang Su and Dumbledore. This conversation has been going on for a while, but Zhang Su was asking why Dumbledore didn't let him tell Harry about the cabinet he found, and Dumbledore replied that Malfoy's actions in the Chamber of Secrets were his plans a part of. Harry's mouth opened wide in surprise when he heard this, and he could almost eat the dessert on the table in one bite. Sitting on a chair, Zhang Su rubbed Dumbledore's dessert routinely and said, "I think when the power in Voldemort's hands gathers to a certain level, he will start to act." "Voldemort is a cautious man," said Dumbledore. "He will not act until he has accomplished something." "Then what preparations do you think Voldemort will complete?" Zhang Su asked. "Obviously," Dumbledore said, pointing to his nose. "Isn't it good to be alive?" Zhang Su said after sighing, "There are many ways to eliminate Voldemort, and there is no need to choose this method with a ridiculously low fault tolerance rate. Whether it's Voldemort, Grindelwald or you, although the three of you are powerful, you can't do things alone. So Voldemort has Death Eaters, Grindelwald has his wizard army, and you also have Order of the Phoenix. We don't have to fight Voldemort head-on at the beginning, we can wipe out the Death Eaters first. We fight small annihilation wars with a purpose and step by step. We use the method of small snacks to gradually expand to continuously annihilate the enemy's vital forces, accumulate small victories into big victories, and achieve the goal of strategically consuming the enemy and gradually changing the war situation. Is such a big sacrifice in exchange for even betting on an opportunity that I don't know if it will appear. Your suggestion is very feasible," said Dumbledore. "But, as you know, I'm running out of time." Dumbledore continued, "I'm just letting some things that are destined to happen earlier, so that I can do my best to make final arrangements, so you indulge Malfoy's actions." Zhang Su frowned and said, "A student was almost killed last time. If you let it go, it may cause irreversible consequences. You know, If something goes wrong with Chu, Luna and the others, I will go crazy and even be afraid of myself. It's not just talking about tying Malfoy to a rock and sinking to the bottom of the lake. Malfoy still has a bottom line in his heart. Dumbledore said in an unquestionable tone. I don't just judge a person's good or evil by looking at his heart. Zhang Su shook his head and said, I value more the results of his actions. Even if he did bad things with good intentions, he will have to pay for the bad things he did. After Zhang Su finished speaking, he and Dumbledore duo fell into staring at each other. Both of them had their own ideas, but neither could convince the other. Then Zhang Su continued, since you want to continue to help Malfoy hide that broken cabinet, then I don't care. But I have to take a series of preventive measures for this matter. After thinking for a while, Dumbledore nodded in acquiescence to Zhang Su's actions. Then how are you going to explain this to Harry? Zhang Su asked. I'm afraid he will be the biggest loser in your plan. I'll leave it to you then, said Dumbledore. In the end, Zhang Su slapped the hot pot back, and said, don't ask me, maybe they will suspect that I and Voldemort are in the same group. The content of the conversation that followed was that Zhang Su kept persuading Dumbledore not to make fun of his old life, while Dumbledore expressed that he would use his remaining life to shine the last light and the last ray of heat. Harry on the side became more and more shocked the more he listened. Harry knew that during Dumbledore's last few months his physical health was getting worse and worse, as a result of his exhaustion from fighting Voldemort last summer. When Harry dozed off in class and was in confinement, he was called by Slughorn to start a small fire. At that time, Slughorn once said that he was helping Dumbledore to make a potion to replenish his overdrawn body. It's just that the effect of the medicine is very bad. Especially after entering April, Dumbledore began to let Harry quietly go to Slughorn to help get the medicine at night, and the interval between each time Dumbledore took the medicine became shorter and shorter by the end of June. The interval between taking medicines even began to be shorter than the time between making potions. At that time, Harry had already had an ominous premonition in his heart. It's just that he didn't expect that Dumbledore himself was the man behind Dumbledore's death. Dumbledore had made a plan from the very beginning, not to let himself die on the hospital bed, but to die in the struggle against the evil forces. After reading the memory, Harry looked up from the pensieve suddenly. He saw Zhang Su looking at him like he was studying herbs in the greenhouse. Take your wand and come to the open space outside. We haven't competed for a long time, and tonight we will do 2 tricks. Zhang Su said to Harry after he seemed to have made up his mind. Harry looked at Zhang Su who got up and left in a daze. He didn't know why Zhang Su would fight with him after reading his memory. Could it be that he was angry at not protecting Dumbledore at the last moment? Harry thought. On the grass outside the burrow, you can hear the sound of insects. If you listen carefully, you will hear the sound of a certain insect suddenly stop. At that time, the insect was eaten by goblins or other creatures. When Zhang Su stood up in the open space and took out this face the enemy, Harry also walked over with his wand. Although Harry couldn't figure out why Zhang Su had to fight him twice, he didn't take it lightly because Zhang Su's strength was comparable to that of the principals in their minds. The two stood in the open space next to the burrow holding their wands. At this moment, the people in the living room of the burrow noticed their actions through the window. A group of curious people came to the window to watch. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 446. This pot has been thrown out. The windows of the burrow's living room were full of onlookers, and they were all talking about the weird behavior of Zhang Su and Harry. What are the two of them going to do? A duel? Rov's commander asked with a question mark in his head. I think so. Ron replied. It doesn't look like I'm going to do other things. Why are they dueling? Rove continued to ask. Is there any conflict between the two of them? Who knows? The reasons for duels between boys are always strange. Ginny said. Maybe they're dueling over whether to put ketchup or salad dressing on the Mandela salad. Rove seemed to hear some knowledge points that he had never heard in Ilvermorny. Then who will win between the two of them? Rove asked curiously. I think it should be Harry. Rove has heard some legends and news about Harry, and he thinks that Harry, who has the title of Savior, should be the top group among his peers, but his understanding of Zhang Su is limited to Zhang Su. Ren's Quidditch is very good, and Zhang's fiancée is just beautiful. There is no doubt that the winner will be Zhang. Ginny said. Rove looked at Ginny in surprise, wondering why your elbow turned out. What we should be discussing is how long Harry can last before losing, Ron said, nodding. This time Rove was shocked. Black, who was standing by the window next to him, said, although I hate that guy, I have to admit that his strength is already far beyond his peers. He can fight dragons hand to hand. He once released a sea of flames to burn a large group of yin corpses to death. The twin brothers added. Rove's eyes widened in surprise, and he said incredulously, then he will definitely become a powerful Auror in the future, and maybe he will become the Minister of Magic in the future. As a result, all the onlookers laughed, and Rove, who was not sure about the situation, asked, is there anything wrong? His ideal is to start a company in the Muggle world and make a lot of money, and now he is the owner of a company. Hermione, who was standing next to Ron, said, according to the analysis of one of my father's friends, 10 years later the annual profit of the company is at least 1,000 million galleons. Anyway, bragging doesn't pay taxes. Zhang Su's little friends entered the mode of friendship and bragging, and Rove was taken aback for a while. He and we are not from the same world. Rove finally concluded. While the young people were talking about Zhang Su, Aunt Adams wrote down all the information and focused on Zhang Su. Zhang Su also heard the compliments on his friendship from the burrow, so he didn't say anything, and after a few words with Harry, the two of them were ready to fight. Zhang Su bounced a coin into the air, and the duel began when the coin landed. As the coin fell on the grass, Harry made the first move, but he didn't dare to let Zhang Su make the first move. Except your weapons, a spell shot out from the tip of Harry's wand and flew straight towards Zhang Su. Just when Harry took a defensive posture to deal with Zhang Su's counterattack, he saw Zhang Su take the disarming spell firmly without moving. Zhang Su took half a step back after being cursed, and the rolling pin in his hand flew towards Harry. Harry, who was stunned, didn't react for a while, so that he was almost hit on the head by the half-meter-long rolling pin. Fortunately, as a seeker, he reacted quickly enough, and when his head was about to be hit, he reached out to block it, and Zhang Su's wand fell to the ground with a click. It hurt Harry's hand enough, though. At this time, the onlookers in the burrow were all dumbfounded. If it was a two-dimensional painting style, their jaws would have dropped to the ground, and the people who praised the friendship just now were even more embarrassing. Is the script wrong? It stands to reason that Zhang Su should have solved it for Harry with one move. A group of people couldn't figure out why Zhang Su surrendered after being cursed by Harry without any resistance. Before Harry came back to his senses, Zhang Su waved his hand and said to Harry, okay, you won. Then he walked to Harry's side and put away his wand, then patted Harry's shoulder, who was still in a daze, and said to him, I will leave the important task of fighting the mysterious man to you in the future. After Zhang Su finished speaking, he ignored Harry's reaction, and went back to the tent humming the world is long, the pot is heavy, fly it up and down again. After Zhang Su got the Elder Wand yesterday, when he was playing with his thickly coated wand, he found that it was particularly smooth in his hands. When fighting Voldemort last night, Zhang Su further discovered that the Elder Wand is as good as his fingers in his hand, which is better than the rolling pin bought from a 1,000-year-old brand, second only to the rolling pin added to the raw materials. The natal staff of one's own blood. Zhang Su, who knew the characteristics of the Elder Wand, felt as if he had been kicked into a deep pit by Loudon. This Elder Wand can be described as the representative of spinelessness, whose with big fists, it will obey whoever beats its former master. What's even more amazing is that when the owner of the Elder Wand is defeated, the Elder Wand itself may not be in its owner's hand. In the plot, when Harry confiscated Draco Malfoy's weapon in Malfoy Manor and became the master of the Old Wand was still in Dumbledore's tomb. Later, when Voldemort closed the door and let the snake bite Snape to death, the Elder Wand was held by Voldemort. After Zhang Su confirmed what happened that night just now, he knew that Malfoy cast a spell in the office and beat Dumbledore, who had little strength, until he couldn't speak fluently. It can be said that Malfoy defeated Dumbledore and became the new master of the Elder Wand. Later, when he was in his hometown, Malfoy, who was stubborn at first and didn't want to talk about what happened that night, was knocked down by Zhang Su with a few spells, so that Zhang Su became the master of the Elder Wand. That explained why the Elder Wand had worked so well in his hand last night. And when he fought Voldemort last night, no one hit anyone. It can be said that he was unbeatable, and the Elder Wand never changed hands again. The master identification mechanism of the Elder Wand involves the law of cause and effect. Zhang Su will not understand it for a while, and he will have to find an opportunity to ask Uncle Zhang in the Navy to find out. But this does not affect his judgment on the cause and effect of the whole thing. Dumbledore knew that Voldemort was looking for the Elder Wand. Dumbledore knew the properties of the Elder Wand. Dumbledore knew that Zhang Su liked to collect antiques. Dumbledore could have imagined that Malfoy would attack him first, and that Malfoy would go to Huaxia to find Zhang Su soon. Then Zhang Su would definitely beat Malfoy up and Malfoy would only be beaten. When the Elder Wand finally fell into Zhang Su's hands, its owner was already Zhang Su, and with Zhang Su's character, he would not hand over the Elder Wand. Voldemort and Zhang Su have a reason to die. What Dumbledore didn't expect was that Zhang Su never believed that a war could be won or lost by relying on a single magic wand. In addition, Zhang Su knew that Voldemort would be defeated in the end, so he lent the old wand to Voldemort to use it. There is no psychological pressure. After Zhang Su figured out Dumbledore's good intentions, he immediately decided to throw the pot on Harry Potter first, and then beat Harry up when the matter was over. The ownership of the Elder Wand returned to his own hands. Harry stood on the grass, staring blankly at the back of Zhang Su walking back to the tent under the moonlight. Based on his knowledge of Zhang Su and his own intuition, he always felt that he had been kicked into a deep pit by Zhang Su, who had no advantage and didn't get up early. After returning to the tent, Zhang Su went to the kitchen and started preparing for tonight's supper. When he came to the restaurant with a large plate of grilled oysters and a bottle of champagne, Fleur, Gabriel, and Scarlet had already returned from the burrow, and they would also live here for the next few days. Revescamander followed. The eyes of several people immediately focused on Zhang Su, but Luo Fu's eyes were full of curiosity, while Fu Rong and the others had deep complaints in their eyes. Zhang Su greeted Rove. He seemed to have a little impression of the name Revescamander, but after so many years, he couldn't remember what this name that appeared as a background character represented. Then Zhang Su looked at Fu Rong and the other three, and asked in a daze, "What's wrong with you?" Fu Rong said angrily, "What happened to you just now? Why did you lose before you did anything?" Now Zhang Su didn't know how to answer. "You caused us to lose 10 galleons each," Scarlet said through gritted teeth. Then Gabriel hummed and nodded incessantly. Zhang Su with a black hair, after giving Gabriel a slap in the face and telling her children not to gamble, he took out 2 bank cards from his pocket and put them in front of Furin and the others, then said, "It's 10 galleons. Well, take the money in the card and spend it as you like. If you don't spend it all, you won't give me face." The money was part of the bonuses given by the governments of various countries after he paid for the hijacked plane. This extra money cannot be eaten by himself, and he must find someone to spend it with. The long night is long. How can Jinlin be trapped in the storage room, not to mention the book? Feng'Ianji can dive and swim. Rove was surprised. "I'm going to go to the earthquake in a small valley near the village of Outery St. Catchpole. A gurgling stream flows through the bottom of the valley, bringing a touch of coolness to the valley in summer. At the bottom of the valley, a stone bridge spanned both sides of the small river formed by the confluence of streams. When the morning fog had just dissipated, there was no one on the stone bridge. Under the stone bridge, Luna, wearing a beige floral sleeveless dress and her long hair tied up with rattan with small flowers on the side of the road, was sitting on the bank. She took off a pair of sandals and threw them on the grass at the side, where the wand was at hand. 2 bare feet were slapping on the water. The clear and cool river water was lifted up by Luna's white as jade feet, and then fell into the river again with a splash, scaring all the little fish near the surface of the water to flee from the place under the bridge. Just when Luna's attention was focused on the splash of water from her feet, a black figure silently appeared behind her, and then stretched out its claws to grab Luna's round place. This is the familiar feel. Chapter 447. Degree Luna, who was suddenly attacked, exploded in an instant, and in the end, she wanted to avoid the other party's head-to-head killing, and accidentally fell into the small river with a plop in desperation. Zhang, who had taken off the prank, was dumbfounded, and Luna, who was standing by the waist-deep river, stared there with big eyes. Zhang Su looked embarrassed. He didn't expect Luna's reaction to be so violent. He stretched out his hand to Luna in the water, and Luna also stretched out her right hand covered with river water, silt in a piece of water grass, and grabbed Zhang Su's extended hand. The plop sounded again, and Zhang Su was caught off guard by Luna, who exhausted all his strength and pulled him into the river. The water is not too cold today, someone Zhang thought. Under the stone bridge, 2 wet people came up from the water and lit a bonfire, then took off their skirts and coats and hung them to dry by the bonfire, while 2 people sat next to each other to keep warm. This kind of operation does not exist. Everyone is a wizard, okay? Things that can be solved by a spell don't need to be so troublesome. The two sat side by side again by the river, and Zhang Su followed Luna's example and put his feet into the cool water after taking off his shoes. Fortunately, the fish in the downstream are very face-saving, and they didn't float up to sunbathe their belly. I thought you weren't coming back. Luna, who was gently next to Zhang Su, said in her unique tone. Zhang Su used the head touch kill on Luna again, and then said, I won't leave until some things are resolved. After Luna let out an she leaned her head on Zhang Su's shoulder, and she snored lightly not long after. Zhang Su couldn't help sighing as he looked at Luna, who was falling asleep leaning against him. Since she came back from Hogwarts on vacation, she hasn't had a good night's sleep. Luna's father suddenly appeared on the other side of Zhang Su without a sound. As long as there is a little movement at night, she would be woken up, and I had to use a soundproofing charm in her room. What happened at Hogwarts? Everyone doesn't want to see it. Zhang Su said softly. Many people are nervous and hesitant now, but it will gradually get better in the future. After school starts, Luna will ask you to take care of her. Mr. Lovercad said to Zhang Su. Zhang Su nodded solemnly. Then Mr. Lovercad left as quietly as he had come. Zhang Su was no stranger to Mr. Lovercad's erratic behavior. Sometimes Luna would even be afraid of him when he floated a few years ago. In order to catch some kind of magical animal, Luna quietly put a lot of things like mousetrap in the common room of Eagle Court in the middle of the night. As a result, on the second day, the students of the Eagle Academy were brutally murdered by Luna. The students whose feet were pinched were not bad, and some girls even got their buttocks pinched. Zhang, who lived in the professor's dormitory at the time, was lucky to escape later. Professor Flitwick confiscated all these clips, and then gave them all to Professor Sprout to place them near the greenhouse. When the sun was about to rise to the zenith, Luna, who rarely slept so peacefully, was awakened by a loud noise. She found herself on the grass under the bridge with a soft pillow under her head. Luna sat up on the grass and saw a few people fighting a fish that weighed about 50 pounds by the river. Penelo, Chew, Cedric, hello. Luna stretched her waist and said to the newcomer. Several people said hello. Passed out in the end, Zhang Chu put down their lunch with a magic spell, and then greeted Luna. Good afternoon, Luna. I was woken up by us. Luna shook her head, walked to the cart that had just landed, carefully looked at the dizzy lunch, and said with some regret, it's a pity that it's not a freshwater bullfish. Zhang Su first helped Luna clean the grass clippings stuck to her long hair, and then said to several people, let's do it together, our lunch today is it. After speaking, he took out the kitchen utensils and ingredients that had been prepared and put them on display. Then Fred and George came forward with a basket of bread, a basket of pies, and a basket of drink. There are many people, and the strength is strong. After the 7 people arranged their respective tasks, they quickly started to act. Zhang Su used 2 bottles of Maute and a red panda as his tuition to handle the freshly caught carp, while others collected firewood, made a fire, prepared seasonings, etc. on the nearby grasslands and hillsides. Work. With great effort, Zhang Su managed to remove the scales from the fish, then peeled off the meat on both sides, cut into large pieces and put them on the lotus leaves that Luna picked from the small pond upstream. After coating the seasoning on the fish, wrap it layer by layer with lotus leaves, and finally put it on the prepared charcoal fire. When everything was ready, Zhang Su, Chew, Luna, Penelo, Cedric and the twin brothers sat on the grass together, enjoying grilled fish with lotus leaves and beef pie made by Mrs. Weasley, while discussing some issues. Just like Grindelwald and Voldemort have their own subordinates, the 6 people here are Zhang Su's trusted friends, and some of his plans need their help to implement. Among these people, Cedric and Chew are currently working in the Ministry of Magic. Although Chew is just a newcomer, her parents can still speak among the middle and lower staff of the Ministry of Magic, and Cedric is also one of the confidants of the current minister. The twin brothers are now rising stars in industry and commerce. In the family power, that is, Percy Weasley, the former director of the Auror Office, and Arthur Way, the director of the Office of Detection and Confiscation of Counterfeit Defensive Spells and Protective Products. With the help of Sly, they have now almost monopolized the sales of anti-dark arts products in Diagon Alley. Luna and Penelo hold the media in their hands, and they still have a large readership as a de facto humor magazine. The youth magazine, under the hard work of Penelo in the past few years, has had a lot of influence among young readers. Now these young people who have a lot of voice in the political, Economic and media fields have gathered together under the tandem of a friend from a certain country, forming a well-structured, united and progressive cross-out villain and cross-out group. Cedric, what's your opinion on the matter I sent you in the letter I sent you in July? Zhang Su said while eating grilled fish. Cedric took a sip of pumpkin juice and swallowed the bread in his mouth, and said, the minister agrees with this plan very much, and has already begun to implement it. If it really happened that a mysterious man led the Death Eaters to attack the Ministry of Magic, he will lead the transfer of the main department of the Ministry of Magic to Hogsmeade. If necessary, I can rent out my villa in Hogsmeade to you. Zhang Su said to Cedric. Cedric agreed, and then Zhang Su said that if the rent is suitable, he can give him a little rebate. After finishing the joke, Zhang Su started today's formal content. Do you think the community defense system can be implemented? Zhang Su asked several people in front of him. Chapter 448. Community defense is nothing new for Brits without wizards. The UK is the birthplace of community construction and has accumulated rich experience in years of construction and development. The community here has various official or non-governmental organizations ranging from medical care, pensions, education to lawn competitions. In some places where the police force is insufficient, community residents will also organize their own security patrols to patrol the community. The opportunity to establish a community defense system in the magic world was Percy's resentment for the problems encountered in his work. In a letter to Zhang Su when he first parachuted into the position of director of the Auror office. Except for going out to perform tasks, the Aurors basically stayed in the Ministry of Magic on standby. Although they have great mobility and long-distance strike ability because they can use methods such as apparition to rush to the scene of the incident, their current targets often have the same mobility. This makes it so that in many cases, when the Aurors receive the alarm and rush to the scene of the crime, the Death Eaters who committed the crime had already finished their bad work and ran away. As a result, the Aurors didn't even see half of them. After analyzing these cases, Percy found that if early detection, early reporting, and early stop can be achieved, a large part of the cases where Aurors were late and returned without success could lead to the arrest of criminals. However, due to the high entry threshold for Aurors, their number is limited. If the police sinking method is used to disperse Aurors all over the UK, the Aurors in the Ministry of Magic will not be enough. Faced with such a situation, after a few of them laid down a group of owls, a plan code-named Enter 10,000 Houses Safely was preliminarily formulated. Cedric, as the veteran official of the Ministry of Magic among several people present, is the one who has the most right to speak on issues involving government work. Percy and I have discussed this plan with the minister in private many times. Cedric said, although the minister believes that this plan is theoretically feasible, there are still many problems to be solved in the actual implementation. The biggest problem is the communication problem. How can the residents effectively report to the Ministry of Magic in the first place? Secondly, there is the issue of funding for the Joint Defense Team's activities. The total amount of this money is not small. The third is how to let residents across the country know this new organization in a short period of time and organize them effectively. Then Cedric went on to say several questions that Scrimgeour had asked about the plan. Scrimgeour has been in Auror for many years and is very familiar with grassroots work, so he can see the advantages and possible problems of this plan. Finally he said, the minister said that if I could fix these problems, then he would put me in charge of the project immediately. It is not the first time that some of you here have heard of these issues, and they have considered some of them in discussions through letters over the past year. It's just that, except for Zhang Su, who is in the middle and coordinates the command, no one else has fully faced these problems. And Zhang Su assigned these problems to people who were good at solving them when they arose from the very beginning. Today can be said to be the time to check and accept the results. About the communication issue, how are you preparing? Zhang Su asked the twin brothers. Instant messaging is the basis of this joint defense plan. If the communication channel between the residents and the Ministry of Magic cannot be opened, then the effect of this plan will be greatly reduced. Fred put down the grilled fish in his hand, then took out several palm-sized touchscreen mobile phones, and sent one to everyone present. This is the latest Ben's civilian contact terminal. They can send alarm information to the command terminal dedicated to Auror within a certain range. George introduced, it can send a certain length of sound, text and images, and the cost is not high. And the command system used by the Aurors is like the big screen used in the Muggle Studies class. It can display a map of the area. When it receives an alarm message, it can display the location of the message on the big screen and content. and its disadvantage is that the distance of signal transmission is limited. If it is to be put into use, several counties need to share a command system. Making such a communication terminal is no stranger to the twin brothers. In Hogwarts, the Hogwarts Defenders have a campus-level communication terminal, and professors also have professor-specific communication terminals. These contact terminals are the crystallization of the wisdom of Hogwarts students, and the twin brothers are also part of the production team. Several people present use this contact terminal according to the instructions of the twin brothers. This terminal was much simpler than what they used in Hogwarts before, and the cultural level of the users was also considered like the popular touchscreen mobile phones in the next century. This terminal can even input text by handwriting, and then press the owl image next to it, and the content will be sent out. What's the price of it, and what's the price of the terminals used by the Aurors? If we want to cover it, how many sets are needed in the UK? Cedric asked several questions in succession. The civilian terminal only needs 1 galleon, and we basically don't have much profit at this price, Fred said. However, Fred did not disclose how much the command system used by the Aurors sells, and it is estimated that most of their profits are there. Then he took a copy of the product manual and handed it to Cedric. How long will it take to put it into use? Cedric continued to ask. We have prepared sufficient inventory, and there are 5 sets of terminals used by Aurors. As long as you agree to use them, we can deliver them immediately. George said, if you don't purchase them, we will have no money for Ginny to use. Bought new robes before the new term begins. After a few more questions were asked and answered, everyone recognized the work of the twin brothers. The biggest problem in the Auror office now is the lag of information. If this system works normally, it will greatly improve the efficiency of the Auror's actions. Zhang Su glanced at the complacent twins, and could see that the two of them were starting to drift off. It was estimated that they were going to enter the Wizards' mobile communication market next. The biggest hardware problem is solved, and the next thing is about the cost. Take a look at this plan. Zhang Su handed a document to Cedric. Who benefits from my plan? Who pays? Zhang Su said to others, the joint defense team members are semi-public in nature, do not need to pay wages, and the daily maintenance costs are not high. Of course, if the team members want to have a drink with public funds, then they have to increase the amount. The specific amount can be agreed by each community, and the Ministry of Magic only provides guidance. The Ministry of Magic only needs to provide the same standard medical benefits, disability benefits, pensions, bonuses, medals and other expenses as the Aurors. In fact, the money is not much. Most of the people present here are people who are in charge and know Chimigan. They can see that the Ministry of Magic does not need to spend too much money to maintain the operation of this plan, so they all think that this kind of pie-in-the-sky thing is very important for the Ministry of Magic. Might be acceptable. After the money issue is settled, the most troublesome personnel organization issue comes next. Chapter 449 Mobilizing the Power of the Masses. On the grass by the small river, the group of people sitting together were already full, and a few people were drinking drinks, while Zhang Su was making snacks there. Knock a small hole on the top of the salted duck egg and pour out all the egg whites, then mix the glutinous rice, shiitake mushrooms and shrimp soaked in the morning with the seasoning and stuff them into the salted duck eggs. Finally, these duck eggs are wrapped in lotus leaves and roasted slowly in the almost extinguished charcoal fire. While busy baking glutinous rice eggs, Zhang Su asked Chu, I wrote letters to my graduates asking about their cooperation intentions. How did they respond? A key factor for the success or failure of an organization is the ability of the grassroots leaders. If the work of the grassroots organization is a mess, then the organization built on this basis will be a building with an unstable foundation. Especially the community defense team, which was only established during this extraordinary period, would be infiltrated by Voldemort and the others if he was not careful, and then become a new card in his hand. Therefore, Zhang Su used a card that had been prepared for many years. Hogwarts graduates, especially graduates who had fought against various enemies together. The young people are aggressive and bloody. If Zhang Su asks them to fight Voldemort to the death, they may not be happy, but if they are asked to unite with their neighbors and surround their homes, they will still burst out with great enthusiasm. And over the years, under Zhang Su's guidance and Dumbledore's secret support, Hogwarts students have established a new school spirit of solidarity and mutual assistance after graduation. Many students from all walks of life formed a group, and some even started a chauvinism. However, this is still enough for the establishment of a joint defense team. In addition, they are still young, flexible in mind and willing to accept new things, which makes a lot of work go smoothly. If these people come forward to organize the neighbors in the neighborhood, they can pull up a terrifyingly large team from point to point. Even if such a team doesn't have much combat effectiveness, if they can provide useful information, then their role will be extremely huge. When Dumbledore was still around at the beginning of the year, Zhang Su wrote to those old classmates who had been screened in his name, asking them their views on version 1.0 of the Safely Entering Thousands of Households plan, and whether they would like to be part of the plan. Organizers threw themselves into the ranks of defending their homes. It's just that this operation just started, and Dumbledore asked Zhang Su to return to China to prepare for the college entrance examination, so he quietly handed over this task to his aunt. Because there are quite a few students who have graduated in the past few years, although it is not a big problem to use the automatic quill pen to follow the template to write letters with the same content except for the name, but when Chu went to the owl room to send the letter, she took the pith the big nephew chopped up and threw it in the fertile field in the greenhouse. It is not an easy job to tie letters to the legs of almost all the owls in the owl room. Even more tragic things happened in the next few days, when the swarming owls directly prevented her and the people sitting around her from having breakfast. So when Zhang Su asked her about this matter, what Zhang Su greeted was the other party's eyes full of anger. During Milan Fashion Week next month, several brands will have limited edition bags on sale. Let me know which one you like. After Zhang Su finished speaking, his aunt nodded in satisfaction. Chu took a form and said, almost all the people we contacted are interested in this plan. More than 60.00% of them are willing to take the initiative to establish a joint defense team in their community or area, and another 30.00% of the people agreed to join the joint defense team under the leadership of the Ministry of Magic, and only a very small number of people were waiting on the sidelines because they were worried about their personal safety. So many Pinello, who was staring at the glutinous rice eggs in the carbon fire, said in surprise, at the beginning we estimated that nearly half of the people supported us and we were successful. I didn't expect there to be so many. Chu said depressingly. I was overwhelmed by the owls who replied. Zhang Su pretended to check whether the glutinous rice eggs in the charcoal fire were cooked, avoiding the other's gaze. An NBSP, it can be said that a single spark has formed. Zhang Su said while pushing aside the carbon fire next to the glutinous rice egg. It's just that there is still a lot of work to be done on how to burn these small sparks into prairie fire. Then the next question is how to organize them. Cedric said, how is the community and village joint defense construction guidelines written? Zhang Su took out a few booklets printed on A4 paper and handed them to others, saying, the basic compilation is complete. We will discuss each item one by one later. If there is no problem, we can finalize the draft. Zhang Su has been coordinating this plan before, so he is familiar with all aspects of the situation. After the college entrance examination, he sat in front of the computer for 2 days, and then coded out this booklet. We must first let as many people as possible understand and be familiar with this plan as soon as possible, so we don't have much time. Zhang Su said. What will happen? Pinello asked curiously. I estimate that the mysterious person will take action against the Ministry of Magic in the near future. If he controls the Ministry of Magic, it will be very difficult to implement our plan. Zhang Su said, so we will come up with a final plan today. Derek should get it approved by the Ministry of Magic as soon as possible. Meanwhile, the media publicity should keep up. The few people around did not doubt Zhang Su's judgment, they all looked at Cedric and the others worriedly. It's okay, we are ready to escape. Cedric said with a smile. Zhang Su handed a baked and peeled glutinous rice egg to Luna, and asked, Pinello, Luna, are you ready for the promotion? The most important task at the beginning of this plan is publicity. Only by letting more people know in a short period of time, and then mobilizing them to participate, can this set of proposals be preserved after Voldemort seizes power. Our magazine is ready to publish a special supplement. If necessary, it will be printed tonight and released tomorrow. Our publicity can keep up. Pinello said, it's just that our magazine is not as influential as the Daily Prophet. I think we still need to cooperate with them. I have already contacted good people for the report on the Daily Prophet. As soon as there is news from the Ministry of Magic, the newspaper will follow up immediately. Zhang Su said. Then Zhang Su turned his head and asked, Luna, how is it? It's a bit salty. Luna said while chewing glutinous rice eggs. Zhang Su gave her a headache, and then handed her a bottle of frozen fat house happy water. I'm asking about the arrangements for publicity on the Quibbler. Zhang Su said angrily. Gudong. After drinking half a bottle of Fat House Happy Water, Luna said, I talked to my father, and he agreed to cooperate with our plan. I have also prepared related articles. Then is there anything else to add to the publicity? Zhang Su asked the others. I guess I could go to the bar tonight and talk to the guys, Cedric said in a lowering voice. After someone said he became silent. In order to let more people know, I think we can do some publicity in Diagon Alley. Fred said. Although there are not as many people in Diagon Alley as before. George said helplessly. Is there anyone on the radio station who can get in touch? Penello asked suddenly. Several people stared wide-eyed, as if they had no connections on the radio station. I'll ask some annoying reporter to help me take a look later. Zhang Su said, she has a lot of connections. Everyone here knows which one he's talking about. At this time, someone suddenly said, are you going to sacrifice your hue and ask Rita Skeeter for help? Chapter 450. Farewell to the gray of the day, gently surrounded by the night. This world is working overtime just as you think. In the Ministry of Magic at night, there were only some people such as Aurors on duty and overtime staff, and the minister's office was still brightly lit. Scrimgeour was sitting behind the desk with a cup of steaming coffee in one hand, and a thick document in the other, looking intently at it. Cedric sat on the opposite side of the desk a little restlessly, afraid that Scrimgeour would deny the plan that they spent an afternoon revising and perfecting in the next second. When they finished the safe entry plan and then changed it to the Mysterious Man version, Cedric sent it to the minister's office without heating his own dinner. When the half cup of coffee in front of Cedric was completely cold, Scrimgeour, who had carefully read the plan, placed it on the table, and then tapped a stack of blank parchment on the table with his wand, and at the same time said, Amelia Bournes, Frank Barton. The next moment, the top two parchments floated up, folded automatically into two paper airplanes in the air, and flew out of the office door together. Relax, and hold your breath, little Mr. Diggory, said Scrimgeour to Cedric. Don't let the uneasiness in your heart show on your face. Okay, Your Excellency. Cedric replied, what do you think of this plan? Scrimgeour covered the plan with his hand, and tapped his index finger rhythmically on the plan, making a da-da-da sound. After a while, Scrimgeour asked, what do you think, is the plan you made feasible? I think it is very feasible, Your Excellency. Cedric said confidently, we have fully considered the occurrence of various situations and formulated corresponding plans based on this. At this moment, the door of the office opened, and Amelia Bournes, the magical law enforcement director who walked in first, was on crutches, followed by the new Auror office director, Frank Crombarton. Rufus, what's the matter? Amelia Bournes asked. Scrimgeour handed her the stack of plans on the table, and said, this is a very interesting plan made by the young people. Take a look at it. After Amelia Bournes took the stack of proposals, she sat on the sofa and read them carefully since the plan was not bound. She passed it to Frank Barton who was on the side every time she read it. About an hour later, Burns and Frank read the plan, and then Burns asked Cedric, is there any alarm command system that can be used now? We installed one in a vacant house near the entrance to the phone booth and it's ready to demonstrate, Cedric said. Let's go and have a look, Scrimgeour said. Frank, call some people to go with you. The area around the entrance and exit of the Ministry of Magic telephone box is deserted, and there are many empty houses on both sides of the street. In one of the houses, Scrimgeour and the Ministry of Magic staff saw the alarm command system mentioned in the proposal. The two systems differ only in the displays, one of which is a huge screen, and the other is a projector, which projects a map on a white wall in front of it. An NBSP, now both systems display maps of the Greater London metropolitan area. Around the table in the corner of the room, Cedric had just explained to everyone how to use the civilian terminal. Scrimgeour asked several Aurors who followed, do you all know how to use it? Yes. X5 very well, Scrimgeour continued, take them and send random messages here and there. A few Aurors left with their contact terminals. After a while, a piercing siren sounded in the room, and at the same time, the location of St. Mungo's Hospital on the map showed a flashing red one. A few lines of words appeared in the blank space on the left side of the map, showing the serial number, time, location and content of the alarm message. Cedric was sitting on the table in front of the screen, manipulating a wireless mouse and commanding that was originally in the corner of the screen to move to the position of the message. After double-clicking, The message was enlarged and appeared in the center of the screen. Immediately afterwards, the alarm sounded non-stop, and 2,345 appeared on the map in places such as Diagon Alley and the train station. Then Cedric opened these text or voice messages one by one. Another hour passed, and all 5 Aurors returned, each apparently 10 or so messages back from different places. Now this information is arranged in chronological order at the coordinates of the map. Scrimgeour, who didn't say a word during the whole process, nodded in satisfaction, then patted Cedric on the shoulder and said, "Well done, Mr. Diggory. Your set of things is very practical and can minimize the time for the Aurors to be dispatched. This can be promoted immediately. If I could have notified the Auror so quickly last year, my leg would not have been injured." Amelia Bourne said with emotion. "I don't need to stay in St. Mungo's Hospital for more than 10 years. Frank Barton nodded. Unlike the communication methods used by the Order of the Phoenix and the Death Eaters, their communication methods are only suitable for contact between a small number of people, and this system is more suitable for promotion among the general public. After more than 10 minutes, Cedric and the others returned to the minister's office. The first problem in this plan has been solved, but there are still some problems that need further explanation, discussion and modification. They have to stay up all night again tonight. It was very late at night, and the people in the borough had finished their activities for the day, and under the urging of Mrs. Weasley, everyone went back to their rooms to sleep. George untied the rope that bound Fred to the chair, and Fred floated away like the ghosts in Hogwarts. "When will this spell go away?" Mrs. Weasley asked George and Fred. Zhang said that as long as he gets a good night's sleep, the spell will disappear in the morning. George looked at Fred and said, "Looks like we have to keep tying him to bed with ropes tonight." At this time, Fred, who was floating in midair, imitated the Bloody Barrow, making Ginny so amused that he couldn't breathe. Degree George took the rope and tied Fred around the waist and let him into the room like a balloon. "Come on, Pepid." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.